live stream of the day, really trying to grind it. And you know what? This time we're going to talk about boxing. And I thought to myself, you know what? There was a period where people told me not to do boxing content, but rather just concentrate on MMA as some sort of niche. Now, you see Lucas Tracy MMA, right? He has Lucas Tracy MMA. But then on top of that, Lucas Tracy also has Lucas Tracy Boxing. So he separates it, decompartmentalizes both of the sports. I think that may work for him, but for me, I don't know if that would be something that I would just stick to. But rather, I'd rather have just one channel where I let everybody around the world know that I am MMA centric. My main focus is obviously MMA, but because of that, MMA takes a different vehicle and a different perspective, also bringing up different subjects that come along with the culture of MMA and a lot of things that it's attached to. But also, boxing, I think, really has a lot of implications as well. You notice in the recent events as of late, Donald Trump has been visiting the Middle East. He's been out to Abu Dhabi. He's been out to Qatar, maybe even Kuwait. I'm surprised Kuwait was not one of these particular trips that he had. But on any event, you're now starting to see a bit of the global influence that combat sports plays into the picture. Oftentimes, a lot of people say, well, this is just a sport. It really means absolutely nothing. There is no deeper meaning to any of these things other than just dudes trying to compete for a better life and things of that nature. And I got to tell you, it's a little bit more complicated than that. You see, let's take Trump, for example, right? He visited the Saudis doing a $600 billion deal regarding weapons, regarding artificial intelligence exchanges, and things of that nature. This is what Donald Trump had going on with the Saudis. There was a lot of that going on. In the surface, you think that that is just what it is, right? But look, understand this. Donald Trump is a combat sports guy. Okay, being a combat sports guy, he's going to understand that there's the Saudis right here. They're creating all this influence into boxing. And you got to understand there is a relevant influence behind that. So now if you're wondering why boxing is a main priority for the Saudis, it is because they want to create a certain influence in America. Donald Trump, before he got into MMA, we all know that President Trump is the biggest ally to mixed martial arts, right? But prior to that, the man was a huge ally in boxing, of which you cannot deny. He created his own mixed martial arts organization, but Donald Trump ultimately was a boxing guy. If you remember, there was Mike Tyson during the time of when he was boxing in Atlantic City. So something to keep in mind, okay? Something to really keep in mind there. Okay, so obviously, sorry, got a little sidetracked here. I'm sort of playing a video game while I'm talking at the same time. I sort of just wanted to wait for people to get in here before we can really have some serious discussions on this particular topic. Okay, so obviously Fisher and David Allen are going to be fighting tomorrow. That's going to be an interesting fight. We're going to talk about that fight. It's obviously going to be their rematch. David Allen, a real fun fighter, not just in the ring, but outside of the ring, obviously, right? And honestly, somebody like him, that's really ultimately all that he has going on for him, is just that. That's all that he really, truly has going on for him. Uh, I think Sam Fisher is going to win this one. Anthony Joshua predicted that Sam Fisher was going to win this one. I think I'm going to go with Anthony Joshua's assessment in this particular matter. Really, I think that he's right on the ball with this assessment. Well, think of it like this, right? David Allen is a sideshow. He's a fun B side. Okay, I gotta tell you, I remember. Yeah, you're probably hearing GTA in the background if you're watching this. Okay, so I remember when Conor McGregor had an interaction with Floyd Mayweather, something to the effect of, "Well, you know what we do to you, Eastern or European fighters specifically." This is what he said that that they did, right? We promote you and then we exploit you, right? And the way that Floyd said this to Conor McGregor, and by the way, sort of going into the theme of London and UK stuff, this was actually at the press conference in their world tour that took place in London. This is when he said to him, he's like, this is what we do to European fighters like yourself. We exploit you, we build you up as a big B side, only to come in there and build an event for us. That's Floyd's exact words. So, in other words, that's really David Allen in a nutshell of who he's talking about, right? I mean, think about it. Who else is he talking about? Um, but on any regard, we're gonna have more discussions on David Allen and Fisher in just a second. So I'm going to wait for everybody to get in the chat right now, and then we're going to get started. So hold on just a second. All right. So David Allen versus Fisher. I think this is going to be a very interesting matchup. Uh, I don't think it's going to be any different than the first time, but we will see. We will see how this is going to go about, right? Uh, really interesting card. Really interesting heavyweight card. Where do these guys rank in the overall heavyweight division, right? Like, how would Fisher do at a world level? Let's say Fisher gets through David Allen, which is a great possibility that he might. He might just get through him, right? If he does get through him, who else can Johnny Fisher go out there and fight? I mean, who else? Let's really analyze this for a second, okay? Let's really analyze this for a second. Okay, so Fisher. Johnny Fisher. 6'4". I thought he was 6'3". It always varies, these height measurements that they have going on. So 2021 was when he made his pro debut. That was very early on. He never really had a real fight until he fought Alan Babic, which lasted one round. And then prior to that, Dimitro Bezos. Okay, so he was a Southern area champion. Yeah, Alan Babic, man, whatever happened to him, right? A heavyweight that I think was managed by Dylan White, I believe. But anyhow, let's see here. All right. So, yeah, man, this is a very untested fighter, right? Other than David Allen, to think about it, David Allen was his hardest fight. Look, here. David Allen made a retirement in 2020. The reason for me calling it a day is simple. I don't want to get punched in the head anymore. Long gone are the days of the kid of Donnie who wants to fight. All I want is a nice, quiet life with a wife and some kids and happy, healthy, and getting nice and fat. However, in April 2021, he revealed via social media that he wanted to get back to boxing. Of course, everybody always wants to get back to boxing, right? Nobody ever wants to stay around. Nobody wants to just lay around all day and then all of a sudden you have these urges to come back. That's that's man, that's what every fighter, to be quite honest with you. So here he goes, right? Plans to return to boxing. I had a meeting today, and all I wanted to come back and box, but I want to come back and box at a low level. Okay, so this is where he becomes really realistic with himself, right? David Allen, I'm talking about. I want to enjoy boxing. I want to win titles, whatever titles they may be. So this is a man that, you know what, I understand where David Allen is coming from with this, right? Oftentimes, being that you have an MMA channel, right? Oftentimes people are going to ask you, well, do you fight or this and that? And I got to tell you, one of the main reasons why I got into MMA YouTubing primarily is because guess what? A lot of top MMA YouTubers have never fought. Now, me, on the other hand, I've done some organized fighting before to a certain degree. I've fought, I've competed. And the reason why I wanted to do it mainly is really no different than what David Allen is sort of talking about here. He just wants to enjoy the sport, wants to win whatever titles that may be. I mean, that's exactly what I did. Whatever trophy or whatever thing that was available to win, I was going to go after it. I didn't really have any other aspirations other than to do that. But mainly, my main passion is obviously journalism. So here it is in this particular department where I am conveying the message of mixed martial arts boxing and the storylines that are all falling into that particular category. So that's kind of where David Allen is at with this particular notion that he's talking about, where I want to enjoy my boxing. I just want to win titles, whatever titles that may be. Okay, so then he says, I will be boxing again, but I won't be coming back boxing Alan Babic and Fabio Wardley for at least 12 months. I just want to come back and enjoy boxing. Okay, so what does he do on his comeback, David Allen? He goes and fights this guy named Andrea Pesci at the Ponds Forge Arena in Yorkshire. Allen wins by technical knockout in the second round. And then after that, what is this? Like literally a couple of years later, okay, then he comes back and fights again in 2022, then fights again in 2023, takes on Frazier Clark, gets knocked out in the sixth round. There's no shame in that. Then comes back and fights another no name, but gets it by points, right? And this probably wasn't even televised. Where was this? Skate Central, Sheffield, England. Where was that? Where was that fight? Right? Probably nowhere near of any prominence to any kind. Then he goes and fights Amin Bouchetta. Again, another venue that really doesn't seem worth like anything. And then he goes and fights Johnny Fisher back in December, and here we are. A split decision win on the part of Johnny Fisher, and here we are once again in the rematch in May of 17th, which, by the way, is the same day as UFC Burns versus Morales. I know those are not two events that really need to coincide with each other as some sort of like relatable aspect of greatness or exciting card or highly anticipated casuals delight in any kind of way. In fact, what we got right here is a hardcore boxing fan and then a hardcore mixed martial arts fans weekend. So in other words, just another weekend for combat sports enthusiasts, right? You got to remember this, right? The correlation of a hardcore mixed martial arts boxing supporter is really no different than the ones that actually compete. And let me explain what I mean by that. The guys that compete have to maintain a certain level of consistency in training, in keeping up with their diet, in keeping up with living a healthy lifestyle. If you are a mixed martial arts hardcore fan, you have to keep up with a certain level of uh, events, a certain level of storylines that are going on. You have to be tapped in to a certain degree to be considered a hardcore mixed martial arts or boxing fan. So there's a certain level of dedication that goes into these consistencies. And what I'm saying is that this weekend is a quintessential example of that because Burns versus Morales is a hardcore fans fight. You got Burns, who's coming off of 3 losses in a row, by the way, by top 3 guys. We're talking about JDM, who's now the champion, and then you got Bilal Muhammad, who was the former champion, and then you got who else was in that? Sean Brady, who beat a former champion, had a very impressive win against Leon Edwards. So it's a hardcore fan's delight because Burns is taking on Morales, who's undefeated, a prospect. Now we get to find out, does this guy belong in the championship realms? Does he belong in the top 10? By the very least, if he beats Gilbert Burns, does he belong in the top 5? Now, going on to Fisher and David Allen, I don't necessarily think that this is the type of fight that is a casual boxing fan's delight in any kind of way. Like, in other words, if you're a person that's into Jake Paul only, or Mike Tyson and Roy Jones fighting, or all of these 3 people fighting each other to any kind of degree, or maybe you just like seeing the names like Manny Pacquiao. And if you want to go a little bit more hardcore niche, but something that is worthwhile in the casual fans' delight, maybe something like Terrence Crawford. Big names is what I'm saying, right? But if you're a hardcore boxing fan, in particular, if you're a hardcore boxing fan in the United Kingdom, this particular event right here is what you need in your life. Okay, it's Johnny Fisher and David Allen. And you know what? Here's an interesting thing about this fight. It's not a guarantee that Johnny Fisher could win this fight. It's not at all. You know what? Joshua was asked, hey, who do you think's going to win this fight, Anthony? Who do you think's going to win? You think David Allen got this? Do you think Johnny Fisher got this? Of course, Anthony Joshua says a casual fan perspective and says something to the effect of, well, I think Johnny Fisher is going to win this. To what evidence do you point that out? Let's take a look at the highlights. I'm not going to show you the fight. I'm going to watch it myself. Highlights of Dave Allen versus Fisher. I'm going to see that fight right now because I do remember watching the fight live. But okay, so we got a 3-minute highlight of this right here. If you're watching this right now, you can watch the 3-minute version of the highlights that I'm watching from the Zone right now, as I am currently watching this. What is this? Mission Impossible commercial right here. Okay. Okay, so here we go. Okay, we're gonna cut the volume down on this one. Okay, so Johnny Fisher's 25 years old, 32-year-old David Allen. The reach is virtually identical. 6'4", Johnny Fisher 6'3". So okay, what are we watching out of this highlight right now? Look at this. Fisher swinging for the fences. Now it's a little bit difficult to kind of see from the perspective of the highlights, right? Oftentimes, if you see the fighter swinging or this and that, but I look at the form of Fisher. He's very well pedigreed in the way that he's throwing his shots, knows how to fight on the inside. David Allen, within round 5, I mean, he was just swinging for the fences, right? Just to absolute reckless abandonment. Oh, but he actually knocks him down. Okay, that's interesting. That was actually a knockdown. And look at this. He's just swinging for the fences, really just trying to. Okay, so you know what? I tell you what makes David Allen very dangerous in this particular fight, as what I remember seeing out of their first fight, right? He will throw absolute reckless abandonment and not really give you any room and space. And if Fisher is going to plan on fighting on the outside or trying to fight a very technical matchup, whether that would be in close range proximity or within range, he's going to have a problem with David Allen virtually trying to close the distance on him. And as a result of that, yeah, this could be a very dangerous fight for him. He already rocked him several times in the first fight. This fight, so the first fight was a 10 rounder. I'm assuming that this fight is also going to be a 10 rounder as well, right? If not a 12 rounder, depending on yeah. So what did Lawrence Usuke here say in the this fight will not be close? He says that this is a huge mistake. I wonder why he's saying that. I'm gonna watch that video after this. Yeah, after this highlight reaction that I'm watching with David Allen and David Fisher, just trying to see what I could pick up here in this fight to kind of expect tomorrow. Okay, so now that's the end. That's the highlights. All right, so let's get to Lawrence Usuke. Let's hear why he says that this fight is a big mistake. Okay, let's hear why Lawrence Usuke thinks this is a mistake. Let's hear this out, okay? He said Johnny Fisher and David Allen will not be close, and this is why. Oh wow. Okay. Shout out to Lawrence Asuke. Okay, so he's former GB. Oh, he was there with Joe Joyce, Anthony Fowler, a whole group of guys that I don't know. Okay, he's got the pictures of the GB team here. Okay, so this dude's legit. All right, Lawrence Asuke, shout out to you. I'm gonna subscribe to your channel right now. Shout out to this guy. All right. All right, he's gonna do a live stream for the fight as well. Now here's the thing, right? Being a slow starter in boxing is not the same as it is in MMA. Like for example, right? In the Bilal Muhammad JDM fight, obviously Bilal Muhammad was very attentive in the first few rounds and this and that. Well, meanwhile, Jack was very active. This is what you have to do to win. You see, in boxing, activity doesn't always win the fights, right? Sometimes patience, slow and steady wins the fight because ultimately boxing is an aerobic sport as opposed to being an anaerobic sport in that of MMA or any form of grappling to any degree. But on any regard, yeah, let's hear what Lawrence Susuke has to say right here. Yeah, and that's what I mean, right? So the way that Johnny Fisher was trying to fight in a very technical manner, David Allen was trying to offset that in sort of making him play to his own rhythm, which is the rhythm of violence, rather than, let's say, the rhythm of, the rhythm of just slow, methodical breakdowns, right? So, all right, let's hear more what he has to say here.
In round five, Johnny made a
And that's what I mean. Making Johnny Fisher work a whole lot harder than what he would have expected.
schoolboy error, and he switched off coming out of clinch. And we all know the golden rule: protect yourself at all times. And he got caught with the left hook in a right hand, and he went down. It was pure inexperience, and Dave tried to finish him off, but he couldn't find the shot, and he basically punched himself out. I honestly don't know how Johnny survived. It was a miracle. Credit to Johnny because he came out fighting, showed heart, maybe too much heart, because he was fighting fire with fire rather than boxing, which was playing into Dave's hands. Both guys were tired, and by round eight, they were basically sitting in the pocket having a shootout. But Dave was getting more
So
success.
that's what I mean. Dave was dragging him into that shootout, and as a result, that is the reason why we got the type of fight that we got as a result of that.
Slipping and sliding because it's his territory. I have no idea how Johnny was still on his feet because he was taking huge shots. He was somehow becoming accustomed to the shots. And like I said, both guys were tired, but the difference was Dave's experience. He's been there before.
Again, yeah, this guy obviously he knows what he's talking about. There's a reason why this guy is a former GB member. Yeah, he definitely has a lot of knowledge in this particular light, right? Understanding the brawlers versus guys that are very technical, and as such, yeah, he did a very good job of breaking this down. So shout outs to Lawrence. But let's hear more on this.
And at the end of round nine, he catches Johnny with a big shot, but the bell goes and Johnny stumbles to his corner. Round 10 was messy, it was close, but for me, the more damaging shots were coming from Dave. It was a great fight, and it was there live in Riyadh with a pain game. And when I heard split decision, I thought, wait a second. And then I heard 95 to 94 to Johnny. I went, wait a second. Then I heard 96 to 93 Dave. I thought, okay then. Then I heard 95 to 94 Johnny. I went, what? Bull. What a load of bull. I couldn't believe it. And I've watched the fight today, and my mind's not changed. The 96 to 93 Dave is the right score. There's no doubt in my mind that Dave was robbed. And unfortunately, that's the bad side of boxing.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with him on that one, right? I felt that way as well. I really thought that he had won that fight, man. I really thought that he had won that fight. I'm talking about David Allen. But again, the politics of the game, right? There's always the politics. Look, I'm willing to bet also that Canelo really did not win that fight against Skull either. But the fact that you have everybody around the world that is hypnotizing you on another perspective, you're going to believe it. So if you were watching that fight live, like I was, and I was seeing it, I was like, wow, you know what, man? David Allen won this one. He won this fight. David Fisher did not win this fight. But whoever, I mean, look, I think the whole world is brainwashed into believing that it was him that won this fight. But on any regard, yeah, here we are.
Johnny was on the way up, a prospect. And really, Dave was just meant to be a name on Johnny's record, a good name. And let's get it right. I'm not discrediting Johnny because he's just a boxer. He didn't make the decision. And I'm actually a fan of Johnny as a fighter, but especially as a person. He's a genuine guy. I actually love him and his dad. Great pair, great crack. Bosh. He took some serious punishment. He showed tremendous heart, something you can't teach. He's definitely got a chin. And these are great attributes to have. Great to have in the back pocket, but you don't want to have to repeat it too many times.
Yeah, and he's right about that. You don't want to have to rely on your toughness all the time. Like it's good that it's there, but it has to be very limited into how you use it because the human body can only take so much.
It's not good for the old brain cells because fights like that, you leave a bit of you, a bit of your soul in the ring, which you don't get back. So it'll be interesting to see how Johnny is on his return. I bet he has nightmares from that night. We've all had those dreams where you're getting chased, running your heart out, sweating, and you can't get away.
That's right. That's a very good point because even though the judges gave you that fight, you know what type of fight you were in there with. And as a result of that type of fight that you were in there with David Allen, only you know what is to come and what to expect. And he knows that he had a very hard fight the first time around. I don't think Johnny Fisher is going to improve anytime this time around. Especially, we're talking about from December all the way now to May. I don't think there's really going to be much improvements in the game of Johnny Fisher. And on top of that, look, Johnny Fisher has never really been tested early, and the type of test that David Allen gave him, I think it was a real rude awakening, right? So this is why I understand why Lawrence Usuke doesn't think that this fight is going to be close. I agree with him.
Right behind you. For Johnny, that person's Dave, just smiling right behind him. Is it just me who's had those dreams? Is anyone else? Please let me know in the comment section. Maybe it's just me. Johnny actually started really well, really relaxed, but explosive. He was doing some great body work, but everything was behind the jab. It started with a jab. And this is what Johnny needs to do in the rematch. Box at range, keep it long, then jab your way in.
And you know what? That's a great advice from Lawrence Usuke, and I think that's the advice that every pure boxer and pedigreed, seasoned boxer is going to tell you to do. However, can you do that and can you maintain that if David Allen decides to run wild on you and constantly bring the pressure and put you in a very anaerobic pace? Because that's one thing that David Allen can really offer you, right? The way that he throws him around in the ring or this and that. Now, look, here's the thing, right? In boxing, it's obviously illegal to clinch for a long period of time, and it's also even illegal to strike while you're clinching. But the element of clinching is allowed to a certain degree, and to the degree that you use it, you can make that fight become a very anaerobic fight. One example of this was Dylan White. When I saw him fight Joseph Parker, right? The way that he went at Joseph Parker. Do you guys remember the fight with Dylan White versus Joseph Parker? Okay. You know what he did in that fight? He made him work his anaerobic pace. Where I was telling you earlier, what is boxing ultimately? It is an aerobic pace style workout. But what did Dylan White do? A lot of people were complaining about, oh, you know what? This is MMA stuff that he was doing, or this and that. That was just MMA stuff. Okay. But you know what? He won that 12-round decision against Joseph Parker back in 2018, doing exactly that. So, although I understand what Lawrence Usuke is saying, you fight with your jab, lead with those hands. Easier said than done when you got this rhino coming after you, and that is the reason why David Allen is called the Rhino in the first place, is because he will come after you. So, yes, great advice on paper, but easier said than done when you have David Allen in front of you. More on Lawrence.
Get your shots off, then get back to range. And yes, I know, that's a problem. It's easier said than done because Dave is a...
There it is. Just right before that I had said that, there it is. He confirms and understands what I mean when I say that it's a lot easier said than done. So, yeah, man, shout outs to Lawrence on that one. So more on Lawrence's great pro advice right here.
Slippery fox. The way Dave slips and slides, rolls shots, catches them, all while applying the pressure, is difficult to deal with. If you let him get to range, in the pocket, he's a problem. He'd be a nightmare in a bar fight, at that close quarters. Dangerous. We know that Johnny can really punch, and he's got a chin. If he can stay relaxed, box behind a jab, then explode in, then he can win.
There you go. So he said, box behind a jab, explode, and you can go in. So what he's saying is that while you're hitting him with the jab, also give him something to think about. I think that's what Lawrence is trying to say here. So as you're jabbing him up, make sure you hit him with a cross somewhere in there, hit him with a body shot, hit him with something hard while you're also keeping that jab at bay, right? But also move around. See, there's one thing if you just jab, but then it's just one thing if you just jab and you stay flat-footed. Or you can remain on your toes and on your wheels. so that you're not stuck in a single motion.
But the key, easier said than done, is to keep it long to mid-range, use his jab, and use his...
Okay, so that's interesting. He said keep it mid-range, right? And let's hear why.
It's about being patient, picking his moments, when to fight, because there's no doubt about it, Dave will make him fight at times, but it's about being disciplined and not getting carried away. From the start, Dave knew exactly what he needed to do, because years ago, the pair had sparred, and at the time, Johnny was very inexperienced in roping.
Okay, so that's interesting. Before their first fight, I did not know that they sparred. I think that sort of makes a difference. And also, I think that is where David Allen understands where the quit and the bitch inside Johnny Fisher can be, right? Let's just be honest about that, right? If you spar with a person, it's one thing if you fight them fresh and you never sparred them before, and now you're in the ring with them the first time, as opposed to you've been in there with them thousands and thousands of rounds. Look, I've trained in the MMA side with the likes of TJ Dillashaw, Cody Garbrandt, and Uriah Faber, all these guys, right? So all these guys, including TJ and specifically Cody, they fought each other in the practice room plenty of times. So they understand what is coming and what is going at them as they are sparring somebody that they've been in there with, right? There's a certain familiarity where you understand, I know the quit in this guy. If I can push it, I'm going to bring it there. And I think that's ultimately where David Allen is at with Johnny Fisher.
And obviously Dave got the better of it. And more to the point, Dave had the experience and the ability to take that data and draw Johnny into a dogfight. When I've been watching the build-up, Johnny had said when he got hurt in round 5, it was because he listened to Dave.
When he caught me in that 5th round, he said break and caught me with a left hook. Why the hell would you listen to your opponent say break?
That's Dave's experience, getting into Johnny's head, getting him to follow instructions. Crazy, but clever.
That's what I look back on. I do.
Oh, wow. So David Allen literally psyched him out by saying, hey, listen, this is, wait, let's rewind that. What did he make him say? Hold up.
Crazy.
Why the hell would you listen to your opponent say break?
That's Dave's experience.
Yeah, so he gave him instructions while, hey, oh man, that's some serious mind games on the part of David Allen. And again, this is what you're going to get out of David Allen. He's going to try and throw you off. He's going to give you instructions and then make you second guess, hey, wait, am I supposed to be listening to this? And then he's going to say it to you with a serious face like this. Like, yeah, I want you to go and jump off that bridge. Yeah, go jump off that bridge. Yeah. Anyways.
Getting into Johnny's head, getting him to follow instructions. Crazy, but clever.
That's what I look back on.
Crazy, but clever. And it is crazy and clever at the same time.
What am I, an idiot?
But despite what Dave says, I do think he underestimated Johnny, because I don't think he thought he could handle the pressure or his power. And to be totally honest, he surprised me too, because I also thought the same. Because I knew how good Dave was, because he used to come for sparring back in my GB days in Sheffield, and he used to spar with the likes of AJ, Joe Joyce, and Fraser Clark. I've actually had Dave on this channel.
Well, there you go, man. There you go. That tells you why David Allen is as dangerous as he is, at least very dangerous for the likes of Johnny Fisher, because read the names that Lawrence Asuke here just told you, right? He said Anthony Joshua. He was, with these names, with this name and that name, and the list goes on, right? And then, you're in there with names like that. You start thinking to yourself, who the F is Johnny Fisher in the first place? Who is that guy?
A while back, and we're talking about it.
You're someone I was known for a very time, a few years older than me, so obviously I looked up to you, starting out boxing. Yeah, back then when I was sparring like Josh and Joe Joyce, sometimes, but you know what it was? I was showing off. I'd turn if I'd give him 3 shots. I'd bring me packed lunch that I would not eat at work that day. I'd be eating cheese sandwiches between rounds, a can of Coke, and that was it. It comes to the med guard, man. You know, it's just youth, innit? It's youth.
This fight, the stakes are high, especially for Johnny, because he's the younger man, the prospect, and he needs this win so he can springboard off it and advance in his career. Dave's been there and done it.
That's what it is. I think that if Dave was to get this win, and it would be an absolute upset because Johnny Fisher is sort of marketed as his next guy right now, right? As this next Anthony Joshua and what have you. But on any regard, I wouldn't go that far, but you know what I mean. David Allen, I think, could have a real Rocky story moment here and really upset a lot of people with a win.
Some great people, but this is Dave 2.0. He now takes boxing seriously, which sounds mad, but it's something that he openly discusses, and he now wants to see how far he can take it. In my opinion, he's proved that he's got plenty left in the tank, and he's now got belief in his ability, and he's also got children, which is an added incentive. Needing to put bread on the table for your kids is a powerful force. Johnny is young.
Yeah, I think that's a common cliche, but it really is true. A lot of people do constantly say something to the effect of like, well, you know what? Now I'm motivated. Now I'm doing this for my kids or this and that. I know that that's a common thing that a lot of fighters say, but it is true. There is a certain element to a push that you sort of get when when you do these things, when you're driven by a certain set of values and a certain set of motivation. But on any regard, yeah, let's continue on with this right here.
And has the ability to improve in the long run. It is sure that he can swim in deep waters. He definitely passed the test. In that fight, he would have learned more than any fight previously. Dave's got the experience, the knowledge. It's about becoming a better athlete, better conditioned. And it's something that his coach mentioned. Jamie Moore, great coach, by the way, and he was a great fighter.
We've got that bit of conditioning built already. I think it's more important now to get it into practice about actually fucking doing the boxing side of it.
For any young fighters watching, take note because this is important. When you're training for a fight in camp, you should be to focus on boxing, not making weight and getting fit. So Dave's in a much better position going into the rematch than he was.
That's a very good point, right? You always have to worry about you always got to worry about the skills first and not just trying to get fit in camp, right? Oftentimes, when you're just worried about getting fit in camp, what happens is that you're not really building your skills to any degree, right? It's just basically like a fat camp. An example of that is Paddy Pimblett. You look at Paddy Pimblett now; he's not in some kind of fat camp where he's going in there now, right? He's going in there in shape, and not only that, learning new skills in the process while he's also staying in shape all year round.
Was in the first fight because going off what the coach said, Jamie Moore, the first camp was about getting fit and losing weight, which is no good. In the first fight, because of Dave's lack of fitness, he was losing concentration, switching off, and neglecting his defense. But with better fitness and conditioning,
That's true. That's true. His lack of fitness, I think, was correlated to his lack of defense. And as such, I think that now that he's a little bit in better shape going into this fight, man, Johnny Fisher could have some serious problems.
the ability to stay focused, switched on, will be easier. The casual fan who watch boxing, they go, why is he not jabbing? Why is he not moving his head? Why is he not letting his hands go? When a fighter's tired, it's hard to think. Never mind let your hands go. Respectfully.
That is true. It is easier said than done. A lot of people do say that. Oh, why is he not moving his hands? Why is he not throwing? It really is easier said than done. I think that's the same thing with Canelo versus Skull, right? Like, why wasn't he throwing as much as he should? And I think a lot of that is highly predicated on the reality that I think the moment may have affected Canelo. Also, the time difference, I think, is also a big thing that you also have to take into consideration as well.
Politely, if you haven't been there and done it, you haven't got a Scooby-Doo. Okay, so what is my prediction? I said this live on the Pain Game in Riyadh, and my mind's not changed. This fight's come too early for Johnny Fisher. I think they've made a mistake. I think they should have swerved the rematch, went a different route, because last time they won the lottery, and nobody wins the lottery twice. I think last time out.
That's a good point. I think that they should have took that win, got up out of there, and that's that. Now, with David Allen, he would have been okay with the results because remember, he's going in there as a B-side fighter, and any hardcore boxing aficionado is always going to look at him and say, man, you know what? You won that fight. You won that fight against such and such. And that's how we're always going to remember it. Obviously, the record books are going to say otherwise, and in reality, that's just nothing more than for the casual fans to look at and say, aha, Sam Fisher was a guy that won that day, so therefore he must be the better fighter, but not so fast. If you know boxing and you understand it to the core, you understand that there's politics involved, and you understand what you are looking at in terms of what needs to have uh, a criteria of what really deserves the winner in that fight, which was Dave Allen. Yeah, man, this is going to be a dangerous fight for Dave Allen. And then they're doing it in London. They're not doing it in Saudi Arabia. Not that it matters because it's all owned by the same people now, but on any regard, still a great advantage for Dave Allen. So
was the best time to beat Dave because he still wasn't back to his best. This time the Rhino is going to be fitter, more confident, and better all round. I did say earlier in the long run that Johnny can make more improvements, but in the short term, I think Dave can make more adjustments. Johnny did say in the first fight he was too nice, too respectful, and this time it'll be different. But when I watched cards on the table, to me, there was still too much respect.
So I'm not going to dig here. 12 amateur fights. I'm pro fighter. You can't be any good. You can't be any good. It's just impossible.
Again, Dave was all manning him, being clever, being nice to him, but at the same time, belittling him. You know what I'm saying? Johnny took a lot of damage in the first fight, so I'm just not sure what his confidence will be like if he gets clipped again, if he gets hurt.
And for sure, he's going to get clipped. Johnny Fisher is going to get clipped. He will. Now it's going to be really interesting to see how he's going to react to it. I would be really, really curious to see if he can pull through with this one.
Will he panic? Will it bring back the nightmare of getting chased by Dave? To be honest, I wouldn't fancy getting chased off Dave myself. Experience, coupled with better conditioning, is bad news for Johnny. Dave Allen's a good fighter. It is better. So
experience, good conditioning. I think that's what David Allen has going for him in this fight, and I agree with Lawrence Asuke on this one.
Yes, he's a hard night's work for anyone. I think this time he wins by stoppage. Don't forget, I will be doing a live stream, so tune in, bring your friends, and we'll watch it together. Let me know what you think.
All right, yeah. So shout outs to Lawrence Asuke on that one. So on the next topic at hand that we got, right? So obviously we're going to still stay with the Fisher and Allen. I think we pretty much covered everything that we needed to cover in terms of how this fight is going to go, how the fight went before and previously, but more importantly, how this fight is going to go in just a matter of hours from now. As a matter of fact, let me take a look at and see what is the exact time that this particular fight is going to start. So Johnny Fisher, I was going to call him Sam Fisher, but Johnny Fisher versus David Allen. When is the time for this fight? Local time. Let's see. What is the time? Okay, that's UK time. When is that? When is this fight? Okay, so, oh, good. Okay, we got AI overview. We'll face David Allen in a 10-round Saturday on 17th. So, okay, so 11 a.m. Pacific. Okay, so 11 a.m. Pacific. That is the time that we have. So tomorrow at 11 is when this fight will be, and we will be live for this one. Yeah, 11. So what time is the UFC card? Let's see if we can. We will obviously cover both, right? Because that's what Saturday is. So Okay, so a little bit early. Okay, we may have to cover both. We may have to cover both here. Okay, so but that's good. It will be done by the afternoon or so because it's a 4 p.m. Scheduled time. At least the main card, the 4 p.m. Main card for Gilbert Burns. So okay, that's what we will do. You know what? I'm going to do a vertical stream on this one just so I can see it in my laptop. Obviously, it would be nice to use StreamYard, but yeah, I think I'm just going to react to this on my vertical stream tomorrow, vertical view. So, okay. All right. Okay, let's take a look at and see the so now that we got the time for the West Coast for this one, let's take a look at Tapology. Okay, let's take a look at Tapology and because it's going to give you the rest of the boxing event, right? So that's why I call it one of the most trusted name in combat sports. Kieran Conway, British Commonwealth middleweight title against Jerome Warburn. Okay, so this is mainly. Oh wow. Okay, Gideon Jonas. This guy is former British military. Jimmy Sains. This is for a Southern title. George Lillard, 11-0. Aaron Sutton. Okay. uh, Johnny Hedges. Okay, so a lot of local guys, a lot of local guys. Obviously, guys I wouldn't really know anything about. Shannon Ryan. Okay, okay. So we got some interesting fights tomorrow. Obviously, the majority of it is David Allen and John top heavy card, and as a result of that top heavy card, we were probably going to concentrate more on the UFC. But again, like I said, we're going to cover both tomorrow. So it's one of those early fight days and what have you. So we're going to have. Ooh, mic check 1 2. Can you hear me? Okay, good. There we go. Let me just make sure I got the microphone working on this one real quick. Hold on. So, okay, what else? We got other topics that we are going to discuss as well. Obviously, Chris Brown. Topics that we are going okay, so good. That's all good and popping. Okay, so Chris Brown has been arrested in the UK. Right, he has been arrested in the UK. Let's take a look at some news regarding Chris Brown getting arrested in the UK. Chris Brown arrested in the UK. Let's see here. Chris Brown arrested in the UK.
In Latter-day Saints, you need to live a certain. And Grammy winner Chris Brown appeared in court for allegedly attacking a London music producer 2 years ago. According to the allegations, Brown beat the producer with a bottle at a London nightclub and chased him down when he tried to run. Prosecutors say the alleged attack was unprovoked. Brown's court date is set for June 13th.
Okay, so yeah, June 13th is his date. He was supposed to do a show, I think, in the UK and then in Germany, and then he has to go back to the Netherlands, I think, on the 13th. So yeah, he's gonna miss out on all those dates at least up until the 13th and all of that. But June 14th, I think, yeah, that is the court date that they have here. So he's gonna be held in.
Singer Chris
Here we
Brown
go.
will
Here's
be
another
held
one.
behind bars in the UK for the next month after being arrested for an alleged incident at a London nightclub in 2023. Reports say Brown was arrested in Manchester, where he was scheduled to perform. At a court appearance after his arrest,
So he was supposed to appear there to perform, only for him to find himself in the middle of an arrest. So yeah.
he was reportedly ordered to be held in custody until June 13th and transferred to London, where the charge was filed. The Metropolitan Police Service says it charged the 36-year-old with grievous bodily harm with intent for an.
Now that's an understatement, right? The way that they said that, grievous bodily harm, right? Especially when there's sort of a bottle involved in the situation. Like that's yeah, that's hilarious in and of itself. But yeah, on any regard.
Alleged assault at a Hanover Square venue in February 2023. Published reports say Brown is accused of attacking a music producer with a bottle at the Tape nightclub. He reportedly did not enter a plea, but will be able to do so at his next court appearance.
All right, so we don't know why he attacked the producer, right? There could be a lot of things that is involved in that. Perhaps maybe a disagreement of artistry of some sort. Well, I want it this way. Can you do it that way? Instead, you're doing it this way. I don't like the way that you're doing it. Maybe it's better that you do it this way. Or maybe I don't like the way that you pay. Maybe you should have paid me this way. Maybe the pay should have been like that. As a result, if the pay is not like that, boom, bottle over your head. Right? P. Diddy has done that. You guys remember he did that to a producer. I think no, was it Jay Z or yeah. No, I think it was P. Diddy. But I think Jay Z did that too. But yeah, it's one of the worst experiences ever. Not that I would know about it, but it's one thing to get locked up in one particular part of the world, right? But it's another thing for you to get locked up in Manchester, in England, in a politics of prison that you know nothing about. Now, my guess is if Chris wants to roll with the most powerful people in prison in the UK, I think he would have to go run with the Muslims. The Muslims in the UK prisons got that thing locked, if not the streets. Obviously, if he was to get locked up in the California prison system, uh, the other aspect of that would be him being home literally. I mean, look, for those of you that don't know, Chris Brown is a blood. You know what I mean? He's affiliated with the Bloods. This guy does songs with random blood dudes, gives them hooks, chorus songs of him singing in it just to, give the homies a big up of some sort, right? That's what Chris Brown does. He's a full-pledged member, known to be a member, and if he was to be locked up in California, it would be a different scenario for him. But as such, he is locked up in the UK, and because of that, unfortunately, uh, he's in a foreign land with people that are unfamiliar to his politics. And again, even Tory Lanez, he's a Canadian guy locked up in California. You guys know about the story of him going on right now. And yeah, Tory Lanez is locked up in California, but he's a Canadian, right? And then people try to make a whole fuss about that, saying that, oh, this guy is representing the Mexicans when this guy was a known pedophile. By the way, the dude who stabbed Tory Lanez, he got locked up when he was 20 because he allegedly unalived his girlfriend who was 13. You do the math on that one, right? We talked about that in the previous stream. But as for Chris Brown, yeah, that's what he has going on right now. There's not really much that he can do about that other than just sit there and wait. Maybe he can try to uh, post bail of any kind, maybe show that he's not a danger to society. But I don't know. Maybe that's not. Maybe they're going to have a different program for him in the UK or this, or they just have a different program altogether. I don't think it's just going to be that easy for him to, ask for bail or anything like that. But yeah, that's the reality of Chris Brown and his situation right now. Let's see more on this particular topic right here from Fox, I believe.
Hey everyone, Ryan from UKFilms here. Hey, I just wanted to show you.
Okay, so we are reacting to Chris Brown right now. If you want to check out anything David Allen and Johnny Fisher related, rewind from the very beginning of this live stream and enjoy the rest as we continue on with the topics that we have ongoing in the current moment of time.
Jen,
As a British judge, Grammy-winning singer Chris Brown's upcoming tour now thrown into question as a British judge
Yeah,
has
he really caused a lot of this judge in particular, or him just getting locked up. I think really cost him a lot of money because this was a big tour for him to be in Europe, and now it's sort of put in the back end, and here we are.
just ordered him held in custody while facing allegations that he beat a music producer with a bottle in a London nightclub in 2023. The 30
And remember, these are charges that stem from 2 years ago. Okay, they're talking about back in 2023. So try to put that in perspective.
A 6-year-old appeared in Manchester court to face one count of causing grievous bodily harm and was held until his next hearing, June 13th, in London. That's the same day that he's due to take the stage over in Germany on the third date of his world tour. The judge rejecting Brown's bail request after.
Okay, so there it is. As we were suspecting, can he get bail to any degree? And now we found out no. The answer is no. He's not going to be able to get bail to any degree. But on any regard, here we are.
Prosecutor said the crime was, quote, extremely serious. Brown was on tour in the UK in February 2023 when he launched an unprovoked attack on that producer, striking him several times with a bottle at the Tape nightclub in the swanky Mayfair neighborhood that's over in London, according to officials there. Brown then apparently chased that producer and punched and kicked him in an attack caught on surveillance camera in front of a club full of people. Again, this is according to.
Okay, so they got witnesses, and now they got cameras and things of that nature. Yeah, it doesn't look good for Chris Brown, does it? It's not a good look. I hope that they somehow, give him some kind of leniency, but I can't imagine that they would. They are probably going to try to make an example out of him, but we shall see.
To prosecutors and other officials in that area. Defense attorney Grace Forbes arguing that the American performer was not a flight risk and should be released. Brown was flanked by court officers in the dock. His hair was bleached blonde, and he wore sweatpants and a black t-shirt. He confirmed his name and birth date and said that his address was a local hotel where he was arrested early Thursday and taken into custody. His case was transferred to the Southwark Crown Court that is over in London, where he's expected.
Okay, so he was in Manchester to be transported all the way to London because of where the incident had taken place. So arrested in Manchester, taken to London, and that's how it went.
To enter a plea to that charge. Brown's representative did not immediately respond to any request for comment from the Associated Press. And Brown, often called by his nickname of Breezy, burst onto the music scene as a teen back 20 years ago in 2005 and has become a major hitmaker. The singer is due to launch an international tour for next month with several other artists, opening with a European leg that is on June 8th over in Amsterdam before starting North America shows in July. So again,
all right, so yeah, that's pretty much the gist of that whole thing. So, okay, that's Chris Brown in a nutshell. We've now covered Chris Brown in this particular light. Doesn't look good for him, at least not for the current moment of time. He's going to be spending some time in prison in the UK. Hey, look, honestly, probably not as worse as the United States, but again, prison is prison, and you're not home, and you're in a completely different circle of people. Look, Bomac, the trainer of Terrence Crawford, got in trouble in the UK, right? I think he's accidentally snuck guns in his private jet, and as a result of that, yeah, man, he got in trouble. And believe it or not, that was because of what's his name? That was because of the Chris Eubank fight. So something to think about. All right. So next topic at hand that we got. Okay, the topic that I want to talk about next is regarding. Let's talk about UKFilms, Adolescence, and Top Boy. What else? Green Mile. right? If you guys remember, that was the Elijah Wood movie where he was a former Harvard student who got kicked out because he got caught doing some infractions in Harvard and then went to visit his sister, who's married to an English guy, and then gets into it with these local soccer hooligans. So, yeah, very interesting to say the least, right? Very interesting type of films that they have. Top Boy, one of my top favorite UK Netflix shows. It's always been one of the top ones. Adolescence, how about that, right? Adolescence has been a real, how do I say this, controversial point for a lot of people. As a matter of fact, let's take a look at some reviews that they have of Adolescence, or some people sort of reacting to Adolescence. Okay, so why Adolescence has everyone talking about raising good men. This is according to Good Morning America. Uh, Three details in Adolescence you might have missed. What is this? The ending, the deeper meaning. Brian Pilot. Let's react to this, right? The ending explains. So if you've ever watched Adolescence, let's hear what what these people have to say about this, because a lot of people really put a lot of effort into sort of giving a review on these particular shows. So let's give them the proper respect of that. All right, so shout outs to Brain Pilot. Okay, Brain Pilot, the channel. Okay, so this is where it's coming from right here. So it's going to explain exactly what the ending was about. So if you've watched this movie before, or if there's any endings that that you know about, yeah. So just be aware. So okay, here we go. Let's see here.
Looking forward to from the moment that the trailer dropped.
All right, let's
Adolescence has just hit Netflix, and it's a show that I've been looking forward to from the moment that the trailer dropped a couple of weeks back. With a
yeah,
single
come to think of it, the trailer was really hot. Really, I mean, it was absolutely amazing. I looked at it and I was like, oh, okay, wow, okay, this is a UK film. It has a little bit of some urban twist to it, and then on top of that, it's about an adolescence, which, by the way, is what it's geared towards. What exactly? It is, how do I say this? A coming of age movie to a certain degree, if you think about it.
take shot style, this show explored the different perspectives over the course of a 13-month period where a young girl named Kate was murdered by Jamie, and the impact that it had around both the
Now, you want to know what's crazy about this, the controversy behind this that a lot of people are not really talking about, or are talking about it in in a very high volume manner. They're upset that they made the characters white, because there's this story about a black kid in England who stabbed a young white girl, and so they want the story to somehow be reminded of that reality. I don't know, man. I mean, you know how it is. A lot of these conspiracy theorist guys are going to look at that and say, well, you know what? This is a programming. This is just to try to get people into this mind state of the Illuminati, or this and that, or whatever, right? But on any regard, here we are.
murderer and the victim. From the students in the school, to Jamie himself, to the family of Jamie, and also the professionals that were handling the case. This wasn't just a murder case, though. This show used the theme of incel culture and toxic masculinity at the heart of the story.
And by the way, yeah, speaking of incel culture and toxic masculinity, they bring up Andrew Tate in this particular show. And weirdly enough, Andrew Tate actually has a response to people bringing up this show. Let's see what Andrew Tate had to say about being brought up in Adolescence. Andrew Tate, Adolescence. Let's see what his okay, anything goes with James English. He actually does talk about it right here. Okay, let's hear what he has to say.
At Firestone.
Yeah, so Andrew Tate definitely has comments on this particular subject. Let's hear it.
Adolescence, we're usually getting the blame for kids being killed in schools. Like, that's pretty serious on Netflix. It's a massive show as well. We watched that.
They're running out of ideas. And it's very easy to get mad at Adolescence for saying Andrew Tate's name. But let's take Andrew Tate out of the equation. Let's talk about other things wrong with the series. One of the actors, one of the policemen, is Asher D, the former So Solid Crew guy. Have you ever listened to his music? Yeah. Or have you ever listened to about being a roadman, selling this, dealing?
So in other words, this is Tristan now talking about this, right? Oh, wow. So Andrew Tate is actually going to sue Netflix over Adolescence. Okay. So he goes after Ashley Walters, right? Which I believe was a rapper. He says, well, he's a roadman or this and that. Look, here's something you got to understand. Guys that play criminals are guys that know how to play cops as well when it comes to the movies. Now, look at Ice-T. Ice-T made Cop Killer when he was in that metal band in the 1990s, right? And made some rap songs being anti-police. And then all of a sudden, Ice-T gets a gig as NYPD Special Victims Unit character, right? So this is no different with Ashley Walters as playing the roadman and then going from roadman to policeman. It's a natural transition, especially within the realm of acting.
That stabbing this person. Who is he to be in a series and demonize Andrew for the rise in violence in England? One. Two, the people who are stabbing are not overwhelmingly. In fact, there's not a single case, I believe, of a white English boy of 13.
Okay, well, this right here is where it gets really controversial because they bring up demographics of people who go and stab or people who don't stab. You'll see what I mean.
Ever stabbing a girl. So they say, like, based on true story, but that's not a true story. I think they're trying to demonize the exact people that I fight for, the working class native British person. They're trying to demonize him. The fact that they've got Andrew's message completely wrong, because this guy is apparently heavily influenced by incel culture. Incel culture is not what Andrew and I teach at all. We teach a message of self-improvement, and if women don't like you, haha, loser, it's your fault. Do better. I feel like to even call someone an involuntarily celibate male when he's 13 is a sexualization of children.
Now that's a very good point. That's a very good point, right? Like, why is it that they would sexualize somebody that is of that age and use that as a character in this particular show? That's a very good point in the part of Tristan Tate, though.
The producer of the show needs to have his hard drive checked. The things wrong with this series is a lot longer than blaming Andrew Tate, but they got what they wanted out of blaming Andrew Tate. They got the headlines, they got Andrew talking about it, they got me and you talking about it right now, and I'll probably sue him at some point.
So there you go. He's going to sue him, and yeah. So okay, let's get back to the topic at hand with Adolescence. Brain Pilot reacting to the content with Brain Pilot, Netflix review, and the ending explained. So here we go.
And the influence it had on the reason as to why Jamie committed that.
Shout out to Chechery Gamers. He says, hello, I am back. Well, shout out to you. We are doing a British film review today. So hopefully this is a subject that you are interested in as well. We are right now reviewing the film Adolescence on Netflix, which has caused a lot of controversy around the world. Well, in particular in England, and adolescent boys as the subject. Yeah, a lot of interesting things. Welcome to the show. Like and subscribe, my man.
Those acts. So with that, let's dive into the show and break down all that there was to take away from it. Here is a review of Adolescence and the ending explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers.
And by the way, if you have not watched this movie and you plan on doing so, I suggest you go watch this film in its entirety of its series on Netflix. It's called Adolescence. Check it out. But if you want to check out also the beginning of my live stream, rewind back from the very beginning where we talk about Dave Allen taking on David Fisher, which is tomorrow. And then maybe in a few we can do a review on UFC Fight Night as time goes on. But for now, yeah, here we are. So rewind back if you don't want any spoilers and you want to hear David Allen versus David Fisher, or stay tuned and let's react to this and move on with the show, shall we?
The final episode's importance. When it came to the ending of the show, what was particularly interesting was that it was kind of like a life after effect in showing how the family of Jamie were living their day-to-day lives 13 months after he was first arrested.
I do like how in the end of the movie, where a lot of people uh, were sort of taken back by the normalcy, um, that came with just the family acting cordial and yeah, just being themselves. Treachery Gamer says shout outs to okay, well, what's the name? Okay, so moving on to the reaction here.
Even though Jamie was the person who committed the murder and he came from an extremely normal background, we saw that his family were all being tarnished by the same brush as what he was, leading them to ultimately question if they did a good enough job as parents and to wonder if they could have intercepted at any
Hello.
point and done anything differently whilst raising him to have prevented the murder from taking place. We saw how the effect of what Jamie did appeared multiple times throughout the day and caught the family members off guard when they least expected it. For example, when Eddie opened up his birthday card, it was from Jamie, something that instantly took his mind back to then. His van had an insult written on it, and also Jamie called from inside of the facility later on that day. What was interesting about the phone call occurring after arguably the climax of the episode, where Eddie confronted the kids that vandalized his van, threw paint all over the car, and threatened the security guard.
Yeah, so after this child who was also a child killer who killed this 13-year-old girl, his family got a lot of flack for it, right? A lot of people were harassing his family and all sorts of things. So, man, very emotional show, to say the least, right?
Was that he was calm, collected, and was acting as if everything was just normal, showing that he was still protecting his son in some capacity, despite the fact that the very reason that their lives were in turmoil and were each individually being impacted in multiple different ways was on the other end of the phone call. We also got to focus on the fact that it didn't take evil to produce evil. For example, Eddie said how his father used to beat him when he was younger, and he made the decision to treat his own son differently. Yet,
And you know what? The beautiful thing about this show is that they do talk a lot about generational curses, toxicity that's within a family in terms of abuse and things of that nature. And man, I got to be honest with you, man. Yeah, this movie or this series, this mini series, really touched all of that. So, yeah.
he turned out to be a murderer. When also, with the same parental approach, on the other side, there was Jamie's sister, who was extremely normal when compared to her brother, showing that it wasn't necessarily a byproduct of how Jamie was raised. The ending of this episode was one which was extremely bleak, and with Eddie breaking down on his son's bed and apologizing to his son's Teddy and saying that he should have done better.
Yeah, that right there was really deep, right? Where he took the teddy bear of his son while his son was locked up already, and then like he's taking the teddy bear and placing it on his bed, just crying. If you're a parent, yeah, that really could touch your heart in a very deep way, man. But yeah, very deep film for sure.
Showed a side where even the family of the murderers' lives are transformed forever and can live to blame themselves for the acts that their offspring commits. The impact on D.I. Bascom.
Now, look, you gotta admit, right? It's very hard to live through something like that. Like, let's say somebody in your family committed something very horrible, and then you're the one that has to answer to that. You're the one that has to take the blame for whatever it is that this person did. Oh man, it's very difficult. Very difficult to. There we go. Yeah, very difficult to deal with something like that. Sorry about that. All right, here we go. Let's get this going.
Life. One part of the show that struck a chord and stood out to me was D.I. Bascom's arc. Despite leading the investigation about the murder of Kate, we saw that he was also a father that was caught up in work. And
this is the guy that Tristan Tate was talking about earlier when I was playing Tristan Tate's audio. Obviously, yeah, he is known as Di Bascombe in this show, but in real life, his name is Ashley Walters. He's actually the producer of the show, right? Him and Stephen Graham, who are both featured in the show, they are both the executive producers of it. But yeah, that's who they're talking about right here. His importance of this particular story and how it relates to fatherhood and raising kids and things of this nature. So,
Full well that he'd been neglecting parts of his relationship with his son, Adam. As in episode 2, we saw that when he was walking around the school and looking to find information about where the murder weapon was located, his son approached him and was the person that told him all about the incel label, the content that people were exposed to online, and that it was most likely what drove Jamie to commit the murder. It was at the end of the episode, after he ran after Ryan and got him arrested, where he realized that he needed to be more present in his son's life. This was because a fear almost arrived in his head that if he wasn't aware what he was up to, how he was being treated at school, then he could have ended up like what Jamie did and being driven to the point of doing something that he'd later go on to regret. The Bascom and Eddie weren't all that different, as we came to find out in the end, in the sense that they were both extremely busy with work, which meant that they weren't able to spend a lot of time with their son.
and you know what? That's sort of the biggest problem that we do have in today's world, right? Like just not having enough time for fathers to spend time with their kids for multitudes of reasons. One could be maybe they're out in business, maybe they're out on tour, maybe they're out doing something that deals with providing for the family. And as a result of that, there's just a lot of times being missed and a lot of different things that you do miss out on. Like, what do you do? Do you sit up there and try to provide and do what it is that you need to do as a man, or do you go out there and spend as much time with your kids and maybe miss out on certain opportunities and deals? And then that is where life gets very difficult, is just trying to have that particular balance in terms of in terms of just everything that you do in life, just having an overall balance. And where do you find that balance, right? And this particular film, I think, really touches all of that in a very interesting way.
And we also saw that Adam was being bullied and called names, just like it seemed Jamie could have been. So it showed that both Eddie and Baston's parental approaches weren't really that different. The environmental factor of their children going to the same school was the same, but there were completely different outcomes, maybe due to the susceptibility to the content that they were consuming and how it altered their minds. Episode 3. Episode 3 could well be the standout episode of the show for me. We saw that Bryony was essentially interviewing Jamie to determine the type of...
All right, so the interesting thing about this show also reveals a therapist or a psychiatric evaluation expert of some sort, right? Just evaluating Jamie, who was the murderer of the show, right? Or the uh, protagonist or antagonist of the show, depending on how you want to label him in that regard. But yeah, this is where it got really interesting, is a lot of the revealing things that came with this particular interaction.
Person that he was. And it was in this episode where not only did we see a phenomenal performance by Erin Doherty as the psychologist, but we also saw the true side to Jamie, the evil mindset that he had, and the view that he held towards women, due to him believing that he was unattractive and that it was their fault for holding that view. There were many moments in this episode where we got a true insight into the mind of the character, such as when he was stressing about if Bryony liked him, despite the fact that he was taking pleasure in scaring her. Him wanting assurance that he wasn't ugly when she wouldn't say that he wasn't. Him being derogatory towards women and judging them solely on their looks. And us also seeing that before Kate was killed, he saw a weakness in her due to photos of her being shared around the school. And he ultimately tried to utilize that to his advantage by seeing if she wants to go out with him. But
now, this is where the psychology of these things got really deep and interesting, right? In ways that they never really explored before, right? Like what they explored out of the mentality of this kid who was supposed to be a killer is that they found that he was looking for vulnerabilities in people, right? Well, okay, you know what? This person is vulnerable because they went through this embarrassment, and therefore I could use that sense of embarrassment and that sense of vulnerability to somehow put myself in a position favorable to this person, uh, only to find out that he gets rejected. And man, this is why this show really hits the psychological aspects of everything when it comes to films and movies and everything that deals with analyzing the mind and what goes into that.
But she ultimately laughed him away. Bryony mentioned herself that she didn't take pride in being the quickest person to give an assessment on somebody, but she wanted to provide the most effective assessment of a character that was true to who they were, and we saw that she got that, as she managed to get Jamie into a place where he felt comfortable and he spoke about the night that Kate died, and he admitted that he killed her. He almost framed it in a way where when he killed her, he could have done anything to her body, but he chose not to, as if that made him any better. The focus on sound in this episode was something that was really strongly executed. The outside noise of the wind and rain would often play as tension was getting higher, and then when it came to Jamie actually.
Now, look, I thought that was brilliant. The part where they had the rain and everything that was going on in the background. You want to know why? I'll tell you why that was brilliant, okay? The reason for that particular brilliance is because look at it like this, right? Uh, being in being in a situation where you have um, how do I say this? Being in a situation where you have the background of the noise and the background of making it dramatic, but also true and real. Because if there's anything that you know about England, you obviously know that this is a place that has a lot of rain, and due to that rain, it creates a certain psychological effects on people. And that right there, you can really feel the essence of the movie and the essence of the environment in which this person comes from. But on any regard, yeah, let's continue on with this one. Very brilliant film. I can't say enough good things about it.
Revealing what happened, it fell silent, and we heard the breaths of Bryony at the forefront of the room, as if to show that she had Jamie right where she wanted him, and she wanted to make sure that what she said next continued the train of confession that he was going on. However, alongside that, it also encapsulated the fear that was running through her body. Hence why at the end of the episode, it almost felt like there was a large exhale from her. Her tongue kept.
Yeah, that was interesting too, right? Was that the therapist, who, by the way, was a female, an adult female, dealing with this 13-year-old boy. By the end of that session that they had going on, I mean, she absolutely looked terrified. It was, yeah, it was very interesting how they were able to convey that through the message and body language, through the screen, and through the screenplay that they were orchestrating in this story plot.
Came to an end with Jamie in this session, and she was simply disgusted by him, his behavior, his actions, and his views. And that was shown by the stunned silence, the fact that she needed to take a minute, and also the fact that when she went to pick up the sandwich that he ate, she threw it back down because she couldn't bear to touch something that he touched. Showing that throughout the entirety of the episode, she was a professional, and then at the end, her true human side and her views showed.
And that's what's interesting about this too. Obviously, the character that is playing the therapist continued to remain professional, not only remain professional, but also uh, keep her composure up until the end, where you had that alone time in the screen where they shot the scene where she's sitting there alone. Obviously, it's depicted of her being alone. Obviously, not in a sense of if you are behind a screen or behind a movie set. Obviously, she's not alone. But within that context of the story, she was alone, and then that's where the expression of disgust and their own human biasness started coming about.
The theme of the show. This series at its core felt like it was about the impact that many different influences and videos that get created that promote toxic masculinity and the whole mindset of an incel can have on the young, impressionable people that consume them. To be honest, I felt like Bascom when it was first being described because I had no idea what any of those emojis meant. But at the heart of the show, it was all about the power that a harmless video can have and the ripple effects of what happens when people are exposed to them. It also shone a light on the lack of control that parents have over their children with what they consume and the influence that the school environment can have on the students. One could argue that Jamie was a subject to the external environment that he was in and the content that he consumed.
I'll tell you what else was really deep about that whole show too. From the very beginning, when the police came and picked up the 13-year-old kid who was accused of murder. I mean, it looked real from the police station to him being booked to them going to his house during the raid. And it was all done within real time, within the 15 minutes of his actual raid and in the time that they were able to bring him into the uh, the booking station. It was like coinciding within that same 15-minute real time because you know how it is sometimes when you watch a movie, right? It's usually predicated on sort of a set where, okay, you know what? This is taking place within a span of 1 day or 1 year, or when it says 1 year later. The first 15 minutes of the film was actually real 15 minutes of the raid, the booking, and everything that came with that. It was very brilliantly done.
He came from a normal home with loving parents, as we saw, because Lisa didn't turn out to be a murderer. So it really did show the power that content can have. Indoctrination is a thing, and like we've seen throughout history with many different agendas, people are able to get indoctrinated into a system of beliefs, whether right or wrong, through the use of content per se. And it felt like this show put a focus on that. Our review of the show. I thought this was a really good series. I don't think it was this masterpiece like
I agree. I absolutely agree with him that it was a good series, but let's hear more.
I'm seeing many other people saying, but I think it was a really powerful piece of television that got its message across in a way that was extremely easy to digest. It was very creative and it was impressive to watch. The choice of making this all single take shot style was a smart move. It allowed the tension to be ever present whilst the story was unfolding. And in a show that felt like there was mystery at the heart of it, this was something that was amplified further through that technique. Stephen Graham was a standout as per usual, but to be honest, I expect nothing less from him now. He never fails to deliver when he's on screen, and this
Yeah, that's true, man. Stephen Graham, shout out to him. He's a real OG of the British film industry and whatnot. I mean, he was in the movie This Is Britain, a whole bunch of other British films as well, and just brilliant writer and brilliant actor altogether.
was one of the best things that I've seen him in for quite a while. In fact, this had a few faces from A Thousand Blows in it, such as Aaron Doherty and also his wife that appeared in that show too. It almost feels like this is one of the first shows to really focus on toxic masculinity in the present day among school kids and how the content that they consume can have a lasting effect on them and the way that they act.
I mean, you know what? There's that, but then there's also the aspect of just, I guess, trying to nip that in the bud or try to demonize it in some kind of way for some nefarious agenda of any kind. But who knows?
And I thought it wasn't only refreshing, but it was a needed medium for that talking point to be explored. 4 episodes was definitely the right amount for this show because it was extremely heavy, and the single take nature of it made it feel heavier than what it actually was. Because with there being no cuts, it almost feels like there's no respite for the mind. This show is definitely worth a watch. It's one of the best things Netflix.
That is true. I do like that. That yeah, they did it in one cut and this and that, and it does kind of make it seem like a very real, raw, and uncut type of content, right? Done in a high budget film of some sort. So
Has put out in a long while. They've been lacking a bit recently, so it was nice to have something to thoroughly enjoy whilst watching. So, there you have it. A review of Adolescence and the ending is late.
all right. So with that in mind, we're gonna get to the bonus content side of this live stream. What we're going to do right now, we're going to take a little bit of a break, and then what we're going to do is we're going to get back on the horse and talk about the rest of the card. In the meantime, I'm going to leave you with an audio from one of my videos, and if you like it, I'm going to direct you back right into it for you to take a look at. So, okay, we'll go with this one right here. Dana White, 9 days ago, I made this video regarding why I think he is probably the worst promoter for Canelo and Crawford, right? You would think that I'm going to support everything that this guy does, and I will, but you'll see. We're going to play this right now. Let me know what you guys think. I will be right back. We'll be right back with a full card review of UFC uh, Burns versus Morales tomorrow. guys stood out above all everybody. They're not here forever. What is Canelo again? 36. What is Terrence Crawford? 34. They got good years behind them, but what about the 5-year? What about the 5-year road? What about 5 years? Okay? What about 5 years? Are they going to be around? Probably not. So who's next? Somebody's always going to be next. But that is wise, because whatever is next, it's going to be cultivated by Dana White. And why is it that they want Dana White to cultivate all of that? Well, for the simple reason that they want to control the pay structure of the guys that are coming into the game. They also want to control future marketing, and also stay into their copyright and their likeness. Before I friend in the UFC with the name of Mirsad Bektik, I believe, which is a Bosnian fighter. And on top of that, he's been a lifelong wrestler. His kids are wrestlers, and he's rising from the scenes. And they had the same fight at the same night at UFC's Noche during the Berlanga fight. A little bit of a conflict of interest. However, the Saudis coming into the game sort of mitigates a lot of these conflict of interests in boxing, as you've seen with Eddie Hearn, as you've seen with Frank Warren, two rival promotions that all of a sudden coming together. Sort of the legacy of the Saudi royal family and they sort of settle disputes and beefs tribes. Yes, Dana White is now on this particular fight. Saying there's a lot of great things. And we're about to explore all of that right now. Section in the books, and we're going to talk about Terrence Crawford fighting Canelo Alvarez, which is going to take place in September the 12th, which I believe just goes on to every single year's, I believe, Mexican Independence Day. So that's sort of the card that it falls under. And here's another thing that I think is worth mentioning. Dana White is going to promote that event under the TKO banner, which, by the way, is a new banner that Turki El-Sheikh has made for the League of Boxing. So what exactly does all of this implication mean? What does it mean? Does it mean that we're going to see new sanctioning bodies in terms of championship belts? Well, perhaps, but I don't think that it's going to be the official sanctioning body belt. It's just going to add on another belt into the mix. So in other words, you have the TKO belt, then you have the ring, then you have the WBO. At one point that was disputed. The IBO in the modern context of today is even more disputed. Then you have the WBC, the WBA, the list goes on and on and on and on with all the championship belts. And if you're a real hardcore boxing aficionado, you can absolutely name all the alphabets that I had just mentioned. So why is it that Dana White is probably the best promoter to promote this particular fight? Well, first of all, he's already had experience in the world of MMA. And I think there's a part of Dana White that has always wanted to do boxing, because obviously that was his first love. Mixed martial arts just happened to be a thing that happened to be an original sport, not necessarily from his idea, but original in a sense where he was, once again, one of the OGs, the original gangsters or the original godfathers that sort of cemented the sport to where it's at today. So what does this mean for boxing? Well, over the years, there's been a debate on whether boxing and the UFC are compatible with each other, or which one is greater, which one is better. Well, the obvious choice right now, from what it seems, especially with the money that's being put behind, is boxing. But there was one point where the UFC was sort of right up there more than boxing. Now, is that always going to be the case? No, I think there's going to be a fluctuation going back and forth on, okay, you know what? This is what's hot. And then next thing you know, this is what's hot, and so on and so forth. It fluctuates. Well, right now, it is boxing that has the entire world by the balls. And by that, I mean exactly with Turkey El-Sheikh throwing all the money and all the big fights that has happened. Look, I think that it's gotten to the point where it changed the landscape of the whole entire industry. And I'm talking about boxing. Now, why is it that I exclusively only say that it is the industry of boxing and not necessarily the UFC? Well, here's the thing, right? We know that there is an intention behind Turkey El-Sheikh to also cultivate the UFC as a partner with the UFC, even though the UFC has its own thing going on. Now, what does that mean exactly for boxing? I'm going to tell you exactly what that means for boxing, right? What that means is that you now have a situation where there's one person that's running the whole entire show in one umbrella. That's what they want. Now, I know that sounds nefarious, but at the same time, as nefarious as that sounds, that also creates a lot of the fights that we really want to see. Now, there are times where these people actually do want the big fights, and I'm talking about the actual fighters themselves. And there are times that they don't. These are one of the times where both Canelo and Crawford actually believe they can beat each other. But when it comes to John Jones and when it comes to Tom Aspinall, we don't know. Now, obviously, from the time that this is being recorded, we don't know exactly. You know what? I'm going to get out of here because there's music playing, so I don't want to get any particular copyright strikes while I am in this part of downtown Sacramento right now. So, okay, so here it goes, right? Here's something you guys have to understand. Dana White promoting this is just a beginning of what is to come. What exactly is to come from this? Well, look, right now, there's this notion that a lot of people believe that the Saudis have absolutely no limit to the money that they're willing to spend. In fact, they don't even care about the the financial returns that comes out of this. That's the stereotypical notion right now. Is this true? The answer is no. And the reason why I say that it's no is because oftentimes in the Western world, what we think about when it comes to long-term effects and when it comes to long-term strategy almost is literally non-existent to the Western mind. But in the Eastern mind, in the Middle Eastern mind, in people that are outside of the Western world, they have a different view of how they see the world. You see, they look at terms in a long-term plan, generational. They look at what they could do for their children and how their legacy is going to follow suit. And I'm sorry to say, this is not something that is very common in the United States for one reason or another. Now, one of the main reasons why it's not common in the United States to have this legacy-driven type of business long-term strategy is because we are at a culture where we want everything to be right now. Now, sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad, but I tell you what, the aspect of Western culture where you want everything right now without waiting, without any particular way of earning it or anything like that, that particular notion, okay, can be provided for, obviously, by the Saudis, especially with the appetite of what combat sports fans have going on. So they can absolutely facilitate that. Now, what they can't facilitate is huge returns, at least not in the current moment of time. So how exactly are they going to go about and get these returns? Well, of all the 7 minutes that I've gone on talking about the different business strategies that they have going on, that the UFC has going on, that the Saudis have going on, the one thing that I have not mentioned, okay, is, well, how do I say this? The one thing that I have not mentioned out of this whole thing is what exactly is their long-term plan out of it, right? What is their long-term plan? Well, the long-term plan is that they need to have a grand standing in the world. Are they doing that? Yes. But why are they bringing Dana White to have a long-term strategy? This is what I forgot to mention out of this 7 to 8 minutes. They now want their money back. They now want to start earning whatever it is that belongs to them, or whatever it is that they're looking to create residuals out of. That's where Dana White comes in. As a result of that, what comes out of that situation is lower pay for the upcoming fighters. You see, right now, they're willing to pay all the fighters. They're willing to pay all the fighters that are coming in right now that have a big name, names like Canelo, names like John Jones, names like Tom Aspinall, and all of that. Okay, they have all of that. But at some point, they want to build their own stars. And when they do, this is where the situation gets really interesting. You want to know why the situation really gets interesting by the time that Dana White comes in and they start building their own stars? Because here's the thing, they're going to control the money from the top down. Have you seen the pay structure? Okay, if you're a first-time 10-round fighter for the organization of TKO, 10-round fighter, mind you, $20,000. If you are a 12-round fighter, at some point, you'll make $70,000. If you are a championship fighter and you're fighting for the championship, $100,000 to $500,000 or this and that. Look, what I'm saying is that it seems like a very low bargaining, very low bargaining. And why is it that a lot of these fighters are willing to accept it? Well, because there is something that a lot of people in the boxing world understand and know about boxers that are coming up. When they don't have a big name, when they don't have a big promotion behind them, or when they don't have clout, guess what? They need an organization to help them. And this is why a lot of the UFC fighters are screwed when it comes to the money that they should be getting. Because guess what? They are in a situation where the brand is much bigger than the actual fighters or athletes. And guess what TKO is planning on doing? They are planning on creating a situation where TKO is bigger than all the boxers. And I got to tell you, that is very unusual for this particular sporting culture of boxing, because unlike MMA and unlike the UFC, the boxers as a brand and as an individual have always been bigger than the actual promotion itself, right? You can't tell me that Anthony Joshua is not bigger than Matchroom. You can't tell me that Tyson Fury is not bigger than Queensberry or Top Rank, because they are. They're all bigger than these organizations. Now, in the UFC, it's an absolute reverse. With the very few that is in the staple that are considered superstars, and then even that alone, I mean, it's questionable. But again, they are a minority. The elite in that particular world are a minority. So once again, why we talk about all of this and their future plans and what's going to happen with the exploitation of upcoming boxers and this and that. What we're seeing out of Canelo and Crawford, let's get to it. This is going to be the last time, or one of the last generations, where you're going to see stars like this, because they're going to have to develop them later on in the future. And when they develop them, how are they going to do that? Well, they're going to do that in the same pay incentive structure that they have for the UFC. What's up? How you doing? Yeah, but on any event, yeah. Anyway, so I guess somebody recognized me over there, but nonetheless, yeah. So this is one of the last generations where you're going to see real
superstar fighters involved in these matchups. And then they're going to start building it. Do you remember when Tyson Fury was coming up in 2010, when he was just a British level domestic fighter, right? And eventually he got in the international levels, the world levels, and this and that. And then next thing you know, from 2017, 18, and so on, we had those Wilder series with Fury, right? And then they started building stars from there. The next thing you know, you had all these other new heavyweights. The next thing you know, it was Daniel Dubois that started coming up after he got beat by Joe Joyce. But then so on and so forth, right? It's the ever-growing cycle, same thing over and over again, right? Well, that is what they're preparing for. They know that a lot of these guys, right? Crawford, 34, Canelo, 36, right? Still in their somewhat of their prime. Not really the ideal prime, but for this generation, it is. Because if you look at the UFC right now, right, a lot of their champions are getting older and older. And you would think that it would translate into lower weight classes where a lot of guys tend to, I guess, stay champion when, or not stay champion when they are older, but rather stay champion when they are older and in a higher weight class. So it's not applying the same way in this particular matter. So that leads me to the conclusion that this is the perfect time for Canelo and for Crawford to face each other. And as a result of that, it's going to be the very last time where you are going to see stars out of these guys. Yes, that is literally what I am telling you. It is going to be the last time you're going to see stars involved in this particular magnitude. But it won't be the last, because what they're going to do for the upcoming generation is exactly that, right? They're going to create new stars, but they're going to do it in a very exploitive manner. So once again, obviously the whole entire narrative of this whole entire video obviously is about Dana White. Why is that important? Because how else are they going to get these fighters to agree to the type of lower pay that they do with somebody who, by the way, is very experienced in that particular regard, right? Experience in the way of handling these negotiations. Look, here's something you got to understand about UFC matchmaking, their office, and how they handle business and all of that, right? I'm telling you, man, these dudes, they are one of the most cutthroat people when it comes to being behind the scenes of a sporting organization. And I don't think that's really any different. You ever looked at NFL guys that are trying to make the cut every season, right? They don't care about your past combine numbers. They don't care about your NCAA credentials or what you did in high school or this and that or what you did in college. Once you're in the pros, that's all that it really matters. So guess what? You get in that room or you get that call from the matchmakers and they start asking you, hey, we want you to go and fight this guy on this card and it's going to be for this much and it's going to be on this date and this and that. Okay, suppose you're one of these rebel rousers or whatever, right? In the negotiation room. What are you going to do? Okay, well, you're going to say something to the effect of, oh, well, you know what? I think I deserve more, or I think I deserve this or that. Guess what they're going to say to you? This is exactly what they're going to say to you. Well, you know what? You lost your last fight, or even if you won your last fight, then they're going to say something to the effect of, I think it wasn't exciting enough. Right? There's other guys out here that have had knockouts and you didn't, and you weren't able to get a knockout. This guy was. So I'm going to give him the fight that he wants and not you. You see, that's how it works. That's how it works when you are not bigger than the actual brand and when a brand is actually bigger than all the fighters. That's what they want out of TKO. But right now, rest assured, the one thing you got to understand and the one thing you have to take into high consideration is that this is going to be one of the last times that you're going to see stars in this generation, at least for a long time. Because remember, this isn't the first time. This isn't the first time this has happened. Now, what happened after Mike Tyson fell off, right? What was it, 2006, 2007? Who was hot during that time? Okay, well, Floyd came up, but then after that, it was Floyd, right? But then people weren't really too happy about him because for one reason or another, for whatever reason, right? But then after Floyd, then who came along? Obviously, it was Gervonta Davis, so on and so forth. But then there was this period where
they didn't really believe in him, so therefore maybe the aspect of selling tickets for his events weren't as easy or this and that. But on any regard, man, that's the reality of this situation, and that's what you have to understand. It's really going to be one of the last times, but it won't be the last time, if you know what I mean. So, in other words, what I'm saying is that just like with all products, right? There's peaks and valleys when it comes to all products. Peaks and valleys, okay? There's times where it's hot and then there's times where it's not. Same thing in the rap industry. I think you could say there's a lot of similarities in that, right? To where, there was in a particular era where everything was hot and everything was popping and everything was cracking as the way that it should be. And then there was a part of a particular era where it just became lackluster. It just became like dull. And then the introduction of digital music consumption came into play. So now that just basically changed the whole entire game of how you consume, and not only consume, but even buy music. So they changed the dynamic of superstardom in the world of rap, in the world of music in general. So what did the artists have to do? They had to, they had to improvise. You see, now fighters are not just fighters or athletes, right? Fighters are also artists. Fighters are also self-managers and self-promoters and everything in between. You got to do all that, because otherwise, if you don't, nobody really cares about what you got going on, because there's 100 guys that are doing what you're doing. And that's sort of the topic and main subject that I really want you to understand. There are more guys out there that are willing to do what you do, and what you got to ask yourself is, what is it about me that stands out? When you look at Canelo and you look at Crawford, those guys stood out above all everybody, right? So as far as it goes with standing out, this is what they got: a deserving payday. But here's the thing: these particular stars right now in the world of boxing, they are only exclusive for right now. Again, I told you, they're not here forever. What is Canelo again? 36. What is Terrence Crawford? 34. They got good years behind them, but what about the 5-year? What about the 5-year road? What about 5 years? Okay? What about 5 years? Are they going to be around? Probably not. So who's next? Somebody's always going to be next. But that is why Dana White was brought in by TKO, was brought in by the Saudis, because whatever is next, it's going to be cultivated by Dana White. And why is it that they want Dana White to cultivate all of that? Well, for the simple reason that they want to control the pay structure of the guys that are coming into the game. They also want to control their future production, their future marketing, and also get a stake into their copyrights and their likeness, just like what they do with WWE athletes. Because remember, by the end of the day, it is TKO, a wrestling organization, a WWE organization that now owns the UFC and probably the majority of boxing. So you got to ask yourself, with that in mind, how exactly are they going to promote, and how are they going to market the world of boxing and combat sports altogether? Don't forget to like and subscribe. I will see you in the next subject, in the next topic, in the next content, in the next live stream, inshallah. Main needs, if you want to find predictions, news, and everything that deals with MMA, shout outs to Kyrie of El-Kheer MMA, Sacramento, California, represent.
That's right, Kyrie. I appreciate you, my nigga. You can't be here. You was talking that shit. That's right, bro. Much love. So I appreciate you for always stepping in, bro. Be safe out there. Man, my nigga Kyrie. My man Kyrie came through. He started talking that shit. Hey, here's the thing. Here's the thing. That nigga will whoop your fucking ass. You would think that niggas all squared up and all that type of shit. Niggas come to beat yo fucking ass. Like, man, fuck you up. You would never see it coming. So for those of y'all,
All right. So, for those of you that are joining me right now, we are now heading into hour number 2 of this live stream. So, what are we going to do on hour number 2 of this live stream right now?
So what are
We're going to review UFC Burns versus Morales, the whole entire card. We're going to look at the whole entire card. That's what we're going to do for this bonus stream right now. I mean, it's still an ongoing stream, but nonetheless, yeah, we're going to go over the entire card right now, okay? And give it its proper respect by giving respect to all the fighters that are involved. Everybody that's tapped in right now, don't forget to like and subscribe. You are entering hour number 2 of this live stream where we are going to do a last minute prediction on the preliminary cards all the way to the main cards of these fights here. So opening up at the night, we got Tisha Torres taking on Luana Pinheiro. I'm going to have to go with Tisha Pennington on this one, right? The experience, I think, just having a life partner who is a mixed martial artist will go a long way. But let's take a look at Luana's recent fights as of late. Okay, 31 years old in the current moment of time, is coming off of a 3-fight losing streak. Okay, but who is she losing to? Well, she gets submitted by Angela Hill, gets knocked out by Amanda Ribas, and then gets a decision loss against Jillian Robertson, to be exact. So I think that losing streak is going to affect her in some kind of way. And I think Tisha Pennington is going to come in here and absolutely wreck her. In what kind of way? More than likely, probably a decision. If you're looking at women's fights, the best bet is always a decision. Look at her last fights, right? Carla Esparza, decision. Tabitha Ritchie, decision. Mackenzie Dern, split decision. How about Angela Hill, neutral opponent of hers tomorrow, decision, right? I think that she's going to ride off a decision over Luana, and that is how I see that fight going. Okay, moving up the card. We got Carlos Hernandez and flyweight taking on Park Young Sung, 9-0. And of course, every time there's an undefeated guy, I can't help but go for them because you know what? There's a reason why they're undefeated, but there's also a reason why Carlos Hernandez here is 10-4, fighting out of Chicago, Illinois. Recent fights as of late. Um, Two men, De Barrel has a split decision win over him. Rai Saruro has a decision loss. Tatsuro Taira has a second round knockout loss. So I'm gonna go with Young Park on this one. Let's take a look at Young Park's recent fights that he's had as of late. Okay, Shannon Ross, he's got a win over Shannon Ross back in December. That was like 2 years ago. So, wow, man, this guy's been on a 2-year hiatus, right? I would be really curious to see how he's going to bounce back from this. But I think that he wins this one probably by a decision, only because he has to ease in his coming back after that 2-year hiatus. I think he's going to try to ease it in, but I'm going to predict that he's going to win by a decision. Song is going to win a decision over Carlos Hernandez. Also, don't be surprised if it's a unanimous decision. I don't see him finishing him, especially coming back this soon. But if he does, man, I think that will really place him high up in the flyweight division. And as you know, in the flyweight division, anytime that you have a win, a major win of any kind, you just string a few wins along. Yeah, man, you're going to get a title shot straight away. That's just the nature of flyweight division right now. Next fight, women's strawweight Elise Reed versus Denise Gomez. Let's see. So Denise Gomez, let's take a look at her 10-3 right now in the current moment of time. right? 10-3. Denise Gomez. Let's go at Topology to take a look at the rest of her career. So Brazilian fighter, 5'2", strawweight. Last matchup against Carolina, former title challenger, decision. Before that, Eduardo Mora, split decision. Here's another split decision against Angela Hill. Gets heel hooked by Gigi Cantu. Okay, but that was in grappling, so keep that in mind. The last loss that she had was back in 22 against that Muay Thai female fighter, Luma Lukbomi. That was back in 22. So now taking a look at her opponent, Elise Reed. Let's take a look at Elise Reed here. What do we got? So Elise Reed is coming off of a win against Jessica Penny. Gets rear naked choked by Lupita Godinez. Yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna go with Denise Gomez by decision on this one. That's my official prediction for that one. I'm gonna go with Denise Gomez. So moving on up to the card, we got Luana Santos taking on Lisboa. Very even fight. Okay, 8-2 versus 7-2. One is 25, one is 34. I'm gonna have to go with the younger one right here, Luana Santos, by decision on this one. That's what I'm gonna go for on this one. But let's take a look at their record, right? The Thai Panther, as her name is, right? I believe she's half Thai, maybe, and half Portuguese and Brazilian. But she's been on a winning streak. Uh, 1, 2, 3. So this is her fourth fight in the UFC. Only loss was outside of the organization, and that was by a decision. She fought Valentina Shevchenko in kickboxing. Wow, went to a decision with her. Also fought her in Muay Thai. That was as far back as 2010. So, okay, what else here? Oh, wow, okay. So, Dylon Cyborg, not the same Cyborg that we are talking about. Okay, so a bit inactive for my liking, but all right, nonetheless. Shout out to everybody that's locked in right now. Everybody, don't forget to like and subscribe as we are uh, analyzing these fights right here. So Casey O'Neill was her last fight. That was by unanimous decision. Okay, this is going to be an even 50-50 fight, in my opinion, right? I think. Hmm, I think I'm going to have to go with Luana Santos on this one. Yeah, I'm going to go with Luana Santos on this one right here. So let's move up to the card right now and move along with the next fight of the evening. You got Yair Del Valle versus Connor Matthews. So 7-3 Connor Matthews against the undefeated featherweight Yadir Del Valle. Let's see where this guy is from. The Cuban Problem. Very interesting name is the Cuban Problem. So Antonio Montero gets a decision over him. Pena Alamov. Okay. So let's take a look at the opponent, Connor Matthews. How has Connor Matthews lost before? So he has no wins in the UFC. Okay, so looking to get his first win in the UFC. Yeah, this is going to be, in my opinion, a first round starch match right here, right? There's always that one fight in the card that's going to be a one rounder. Yadir Diwali versus this guy, I think is going to be that one rounder. Okay, let's take a look at how he's finished people before. He's got a rear naked choke outside of the UFC. This is realistically his UFC debut, honestly, right? Yeah, he's got good submissions. I think he's going to get a submission on this one. I'm going to go with Yadir with a submission, and I think he continues on his undefeated streak on this one. So moving on to the card. Let's take a look at what else is on the card right now. Jared Gordon. Okay, this is interesting. We got Jared Gordon versus Tiago Moises. Now, look, I'm going to go with Jared Gordon on this one. I know that Paddy Pimblett has moved up the ranks right now, but there is a reason why Jared Gordon was able to put it on Tiago, why he was able to put it on Paddy Pimblett the way that he did. Tiago Moises, let's take a look at his last few fights just to kind of understand where we are at with him right now, right? Gets a win over Trey Ogden back in January of this year. Prior to that, loses to Lubit Klein, unanimous decision. Before that, gets a win over Mitch Ramirez, but then loses to St. Denis. Gets a win over a no-name, and then gets a win over Chris Giagos, but then loses to Islam Makhachev and Joel Alvarez all the way back in 2021. So this is a guy that loses to top names, but if you notice, a lot of his wins are against guys that don't have Wikipedia pages. So I'm going to go with Jared Gordon on this one. Jared Gordon, let's take a look at his previous fights previously to kind of understand where Jared Gordon is at. 36 years old right now in his current state. Jared Gordon has a loss over Nusrat in his last fight. That was a split decision, so very close fight. Mark Madsen, he knocks him out with some elbows and some punches. Bobby Green, accidental head clash. Obviously, back in 2022, Paddy Pimblett, a very tough fight. So this guy is always going to be in a fight. I think that he takes a decision win over Tiago Moises. It's going to be a pretty good fight. I think it's not going to be an easy fight at all. It's going to be pretty easy. I mean, it's not going to be pretty easy, but I think Jared Gordon is going to edge this one out in this fight. So, okay, moving on in the prelims, the final fight of the prelims, you got Gabe Green taking on Matias Camilo. I know Gabe Green has fought Ian Gary before, but let's take a look at Matias Camilo. Let's see where he's at. Mr. Burberry says Jared is tough. He is, man. He's absolutely a tough dude, man. Jared, this is why I think that he's going to give that kid Tiago Moises a very tough fight. So we got here Matias Camillo, 9-2. Okay, so coming off of a win against Dorbish Nokov. This is his UFC debut against Gabe Green. Not a bad UFC debut. Again, nothing easy comes in the UFC, right? Has some armbar wins, TKOs, a few submissions. Really good in his submissions in Camilo here. But then let's take a look at his opponent, Gabe Green. Pretty good name to start his UFC debut in, right? Takes a loss against Brian Battle. That was back in the French card of ABC. That's, by the way, where Brian Battle sort of got into it with the French government. And then prior to that, it was Ian Machado Gary by a decision that he lost to. Daniel Rodriguez, he loses to. He beats Philip Rowe by a unanimous decision. Wow, which is interesting, right? He got a win over Philip Rowe. So, yeah, this is a tough one, man. This is I think this is going to be a 50-50 fight. I'm going to go with Gabe Green on this one. Let me know on the comment section below if you guys agree with that take or not. But yeah, I think Gabe Green takes this one by a decision. Abdur Rahim says UFC 319 Duplessis versus Chimaev. And they have announced the undercard. We're going to look at that in a second. Oh, you know what? Since I just ended the prelims right now before we go into the main card of tomorrow's card, yeah, let's take a look at and see the main card, or I'm sorry, yeah, if there is a main card for UFC 319. What is this card developing into right now? So let's see. In UFC, nothing as of yet. And you know what? This is supposed to be in August. So no, there's nothing yet. There's nothing yet. What do what do you will win? Who do you think will win between Crawford and Canelo? I'm going to go with Crawford, Usyk, and Daniel Dubois too. I'm going to go with Daniel Dubois. I know that's a shocking pick, but I think he has his number, and I think this is the time where Daniel Dubois is going to show that. Okay, so moving on. Now we go into the main cards of the UFC's card tomorrow. By the way, if you want the full breakdown of the entire card, remember, start this stream back at exactly the 2 hour mark. The 2 hour mark is the exact time that I have the full card for Gilbert Burns versus Morales, May 17, 2025 fight day. So, okay, moving on to the main card. Julian Erosa taking on Melquel Costa. I think I'm going to go with Costa on this one. Let's take a look at where Costa has been in his past few fights. Let's take a look at where this guy has been right here. So you go with Costa as well, Burberry, I reckon. Is that who you're going with as well? All right. So reminds me of Scott Jorgensen. They sort of had this same similar skin condition, if you know what I'm talking about. Christian Rodriguez gets a decision over him. He beats one of my boys out here in Sacramento, Andre Feely, with a guillotine. How about that, right? Team Alpha Male is known for guillotines, and he guillotines one of the guillotine masters. Steve Garcia was his last loss. That was in 2023. Shylon, rear naked choke. Austin, okay, overhand right. So he's got some good strikes. He's got some good TKOs. He's got good rear naked chokes. Okay, so let's take a look at his opponent. Where has Julian Erosa been? Julian Erosa coming off of a win against Darren Elkins, first round. I think at some point, yeah, Derek Elkins becomes easily damaged to where you can do that. Christian Rodriguez, right? Mutual opponent of him and Costa. He's got a rear naked choke over him. He's got a guillotine on Richard Ramos. Has lost to Padilla with a right hook. Alex Caceres has beaten him back in 2022. Where is Alex Caceres? He would be a fun addition. He has a win over Hakeem Dawodu. I know, yeah, I know one of the training partners of Hakeem Dawodu up in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, with Nick Ring and also Fo Lambiris as well, Stephen Patterson. So, okay, yeah, it's a 50-50 fight, but I feel like Costa is going to edge this one. I don't see a finish going into this one. I'm going to go with a decision on the part of Costa. I think Costa is going to win by decision on this one. So okay, moving on to the next fight of the night. Let's see here. What is the next fight of the night here? Okay, so Julian Erosa, Dustin Soltov taking on Nusralan Yurbakov. I'm going to go with Nursulon, 35-9-2. Wow, very experienced fighter. Man, we're talking about, like, I'll go with Dustin. Burberry says, yeah, he'll go with Dustin. Uh, man, 50 fights. This dude has already had 50 fights in his career, and he's 6'4", and he's fighting at middleweight. He's going to be a problem for Dustin. Carlos says, hello, my friends. I'm not going to say what your name is, but yeah, let me know what part of the world you are from, Carlos. Yeah, I think Norsalon is going to outbox him, maybe even out wrestle him here. He's going to use his range, and he's going to utilize that to beat Dustin, in my opinion. So, but that's all right. You know, we obviously have very contrasting views on this one. But I'm gonna go with the height of Nursulon, and you know what? Even at his height, he it's doesn't have really the longest reach, right? So maybe I see why you're picking Dustin. Maybe you may think that Dustin can get in there up close and personal, and maybe hit him with a shot that he may not see coming from the bottom, or maybe just match him with some strikes because obviously his reach is not really that far in contrasting from him. So next one is Sadiq Youssef taking on Myron Santos. Uh, I'm going to go with Sadiq Youssef on this one by decision. Now let's take a look at some fights that Myron Santos has been in as of late. So let's see here. Myron the Legend Santos. Quite a name, right? I mean, you got a name like Legend. That's a lot to so his last loss was against Dan Aguirre, and that was in the LFA. But before that, he strung up 3 wins, one in the LFA and then 2 in the UFC right now. So only has 1 loss against Francis Marshall. Very close fight before Conan Ofi prior to that. All right, so Sadiq Youssef. Let's see where Sadiq Youssef has been. You have Santos on this one. Okay, so you see the pattern here. I'm like rooting for all the Muslim guys, and Burberry is rooting for the guys that are fighting against them. So okay, that's quite an interesting thing. Okay, but I can see why you're going with Santos here. Diego Lopez was his last loss. There's no shame in that. But how about this? This is what's really concerning me, right? Edson Barbosa. Now, look, I know Edson Barbosa was great at 155, but him at 145, a little bit drained, a little bit older. And for him to have beaten him, I mean, you know what? It's a close fight either way. I didn't see that pattern, but that's fair. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I saw that pattern because maybe my mind was in the gutter of that of picking non-Muslims. Yeah, of course, my mind was in the gutter in terms of being playful and sort of banterful in that regard. But on any regard, yeah, shout out to you on that. But great fights, right? Obviously, this is not one of those highly anticipated cards or whatever, but it is guys like us that sort of make these non highly anticipated fights a lot more entertaining and a lot more joyful to consume just by talking about it. So yeah, so I would be concerned about this one, but you know what? I think that he could edge this off right here, right? He's been in a lot of decision fights. I think he knows how to edge a decision. Going back to Alex Caceres, he's got a decision there. Arnold Allen, he lost by decision, gets a decision over Andre Feely. So yeah, I'm going to go with Sadiq Youssef on this one. So moving on to the card of the evening. So let's see, what do we have here? Co-main event of the evening, Rodolfo Bellato taking on Paul Craig. I'm sorry to say, as much as I like Paul Craig, and I like that he has a story behind him. Look, man, I love that he has wins over former champions. We're talking Ankalaev, Jamal Hill. He got all that in his back pocket, right? He could retire a happy man. But I tell you what, if for whatever reason Paul Craig actually pulls this off, what I would like him to do is actually retire right here on the spot and just go out with a win right here. That's the best thing for him to do. But of course, easier said than done. There's other obligations that may keep Paul Craig around. Maybe he wants to make a little bit more money. Maybe he'll be incentivized to make more money, or maybe he could make more money fighting outside of the UFC, and this could be his final journey, like many others that have been in the UFC before that have gone in and out of that door. But on any regard, let's take a look at his past fights prior to this, right? So Paul Craig, right now, 37 years old at 185, still a good chance for him. There's still 205 as well. Bo Nickel comes to mind, 309 with his loss in New York. That's in the same John Jones card. Caio Borralho, 301, gets knocked out. Brendan Allen submits him back in 2023. What else? That's in. Oh, that was in Las Vegas. Was this? Let's see what this is. Brendan Allen. Okay, yeah. I remember this card. Okay. Yeah, Johnny Walker has a loss against Johnny Walker. Volkan Ozdemir, but has a win over Andre Muniz. Yeah, man, 3-fight losing streak against this freak that he's going to fight right here. Rodolfo Bellagio. Let's take a look at where Rodolfo is at right now in his current trajectory state, right? So what do we got for Rodolfo here? Rodolfo. Let's see here. Let's take a look at his stats. Yeah, Rodolfo the Traitor. What a name. His name is the Traitor. All right. So he's got a majority decision over Jimmy Crute. Okay, Ihor Patora ground and pounds him. Talha in the contender series, and then LFA. Yeah, I'm gonna go with him on this one, right? I don't know. You know what, man? There is a chance it'll be a good fight for Paul, and Paul is tough, but man, I don't know. I just feel like my MMA intelligence is telling me to go with Rodolfo, and picking Craig would only be a sentimental reason, right? Because we like Craig. He's entertaining. He's got all these wins against Jamal Hill and Ankalaev, but even now, Jamal Hill and Ankalaev are so much even more evolved than he ever was, and I think the striking is just going to be the overall factor that I think will be the game changer here. So I'm going with Rodolfo Bellagio. Now, I've gone over the main event. Obviously, today I did a main event prediction with Morales and Burns. I did a whole entire breakdown of just their main event alone, and I think I did it today in my workout videos that I did. So if you want to check it out, there's a live stream for that. But if you must know, yeah, I'm going to be going for not rooting, but who I think is going to win. I think it's going to be Gilbert Burns. I think Gilbert Burns has a good chance of winning this by a decision. Now, look, I know that Gilbert Burns is inconsistent, but Morales, let's take a look at where Morales is at right now. Yeah, I think there's a good chance that Gilbert Burns wins this one based on look. You remember when Dustin Poirier? Um, do you remember when Dustin Poirier beat what's his name? Benoit Saint Denis, right? That's the type of vibes that I'm getting off of this fight. Now, look, Michael Morales is tough, but let's take a look at the names that Michael Morales has, right? Maybe this is just a little bit too soon for him to take on Gilbert Burns. I know that he's the 25-year-old and Gilbert Burns is a 38-year-old, but okay, he's got a TKO win over Neil Magny. That's very impressive. Very few people can do that to Neil Magny. Gets a decision win over Max Griffin. Max Griffin is very good. He trains out here in Sacramento, so of course he's very good. He's got a win over Jake Matthews. Okay, after Jake Matthews became a Muslim, and you know what happens when somebody converts to Islam, they start gaining a whole new focus into their career, especially in their fight career, and he beat that version of Jake Matthews. Has a win over Trevin Giles, knocks out Trevin Giles, Houston PD. Not too many brothers can go out there and brag and say that they knocked out a cop and got away with it, but he did that against Trevin Giles, and that was back in UFC 270 in January 2022 in Anaheim. So, yeah, man, Neil Magny's a good name, but I just think the level of competition that Gilbert Burns has faced, I think, is going to be way too much for Michael Morales. Now, I'm not saying that he knocks out Michael Morales. I think he takes him to a decision. But you know what? I think in that video that I did, I think I picked Michael Morales to win. In this one, I'm going to be picking Gilbert Burns. Yeah, I'm going with Gilbert Burns on this one. Well, we will see. We will see, and let's see if the wrestling of Michael Morales is going to come into play here, or the experience of Gilbert Burns. Burberry here says, "I think Burns won't go the distance." Um, well, that's where we beg to differ. I think that he will go the distance on this one, especially if the flow of the fight continues to be a feeling out process, which is a great possibility that they're going to fight in that particular matter. Yeah, man, I would say, yeah. I think that's I think that's where the fight trajectory is going to go. Round one, they feel each other out. Round two, won't be much of a difference. Maybe one person will get one takedown over the other, and then they're going to scramble and this and that. Mr. Burberry says, I will check with you tomorrow. For sure, man. Hey, you know what? I'm going to be live for not only the Johnny Fisher versus David Allen fight, which is a big boxing match that is going on in the UK, but I will also be live for this UFC event as well. So there it is, man. Over the past couple of months, I've been just doing streaming and been a full time streamer doing this. So I'm definitely going to be there and keep up with all the cards and everything that is in between. So with that in mind, we have now just finished all the entire cards going over it. If you guys want to watch this from the very beginning and from the very start, if you want to see the predictions that I have, the last minute predictions for UFC Morales versus Burns fight night, rewind back to the 2 hour mark, the exact 2 hour mark of this entire live stream. And you will, matter of fact, I'm going to uh, do that right now. I'm going to put this in um, timestamp. Okay, so 2 hours. Minute predictions. All right. There it is. So, yeah, Burberry, definitely check with me tomorrow. It'll be some interesting banter on that regard. So, with that in mind, let's see here. What else do we have here? Okay. So I think that's about it that we have for this one. And he says, yes, sir. Yeah, come check back with me tomorrow. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm waiting for my Canelo live stream that I did to come back because um, I think I think I should get the strike off of that one because I think by Monday it's going to be 10 business days at that point. So they have to reinstate that video back so I could get more extra views on the channel from the Canelo card that I had covered, but it was premature. I wasn't able to cover it all the way. So as a result, why did you get a strike? Because the zone hit me with it. The zone hit me with it. Specifically, this one person named Tim Smith from Team Whistle. What they are is basically, well, look at the name, right? They are whistleblowers for the zone. I don't know, man. Over a fight poster, right? Which is kind of weird, but again, it kind of put me at an offset for a couple of for like a week. I wasn't able to live stream up until the Bilal Muhammad and the JDM fight. Then I was allowed to stream at that point because then it was from the 7 day ban. But yeah, it's just something I'm fighting right now, and I think I'm gonna get a ban lifted from it because I did nullify the strike and this and that, and so we'll see. But but on any regard, yeah, we will keep you updated on that. I don't know what that says. I don't read Spanish or Portuguese, my man. But yeah, on any regard, what else do we have here? Yeah, Manny Pacquiao is going to fight Mario Barrios in July 19th, 2025. So yeah, man, that is all that I have. Stay tuned for the bonus stream. I got some bonus content edit audio that I'd like you guys to hear in the remaining of the live stream. But for now, this is goodbye from me, but not goodbye from my content. I will see you in the next one. Stay tuned. Alex Pereira says he was hacked. Is it true? Well, I'm going to lean towards no. I'm going to tell you why. The reason is, let's look at it like this, right? Alex Pereira has done everything that the UFC has asked of him. Conor McGregor card falls off, throws in Alex. He goes in there on a short notice. Another superstar falls off through an injury. Here comes Alex, rescuing the entire show, headlines the entire pay-per-view, and gets another knockout. Does the UFC another favor, takes on a dangerous challenger, and Ankalaev loses a 5-round decision. Of course, some will look at it as controversial and it could have gone the other way, but nonetheless, he was in there. He was in the fire. He won some, he lost some, and he won more some than he did actually lose one. But this particular battle that he has going on with the UFC on the low, I think he is absolutely losing the negotiating battle. Now, why do I say that? Because obviously the message that he spoke about, where he was unhappy with the UFC, he was unhappy with the situation, he felt like whatever it is that he was going through was not being appreciated. And so he feels the need to possibly retire, because what else is there to accomplish? Alex has already gotten 2 multiple belts in not only glory, but also in the UFC. It's a great career, both in kickboxing and MMA. And on top of that, I'm sure he's made plenty of money to retire, but that's neither here or there. What I'm saying is that when it comes to leverage, hey, he has some kind of leverage in terms of getting out of a situation that he doesn't want to be in. Now, what is it about this situation that he doesn't want to be in? Well, we're not really sure, right? And again, there's a lot of cryptic message going on here, but it is, however, on the internet. You know how they say, right? Whatever is on the internet is there forever, and it's going to be there for people to scrutinize in every kind of way. So look at it like this, right? Alex Pereira has been a good soldier for the UFC, but the UFC is bigger than every individual. The quintessential term, nobody is bigger than the program. Nobody's bigger than the program when it comes to the UFC, okay? Because their brand and their logo is way bigger than any logo of any fighter. And let me explain why that is. Because every fighter that has grown up to wanting to be an MMA fighter has looked at those logos and said to themselves, this is where I'm going to aspire to be, no matter how big you are. Even if it's Anderson Silva with that symbol, Michael Jordan-like symbol that he has, where he has the front kick towards Vitor Belfort, right? That's an iconic symbol for Anderson Silva. The other symbol for Chuck Liddell, having those ice coming out of his shorts, and then the flames that comes out of Tito Ortiz and all of that. All of these things, right? They're all logos for these fighters. George St. Pierre with the whole Japanese gi outfit for karate, and then jiu-jitsu and all of that, right? All of these things, yes, they are a logo for each and every one of these fighters. But remember this. The reason why Alex is losing his battle is because nobody is bigger than a program, and whatever top symbols you see or whatever icons you see from these legends, they will never be bigger than the icon and the symbol of the UFC, because nobody is bigger than the program. And that's something that Alex is now understanding when it comes to these negotiation tables that are going on behind the scenes. So with that in mind, that is all that I have for this short video explaining the situation of what is happening with Alex. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one, inshallah. Healthy life. He wanted to live a life of a warrior. Shocked at the recent loss of Ryan Garcia against Rolly Romero. At the same time, I thought that he had it coming. Reason being, not only was Ryan Garcia a very horrible person outside of the ring, outside of competition, but not only that, he was also a very inconsistent boxer in terms of his discipline and in terms of staying in the gym and living the life of a warrior, as Chris Eubank Jr. or Sr. would love to say. You know what I mean. You know exactly what Chris Eubank is talking about. That man was absolutely relentless in his discipline when he was in his prime. And it is the reason why he has 20 title defenses under his belt. And weirdly enough, I heard on the Boxing Voice the other day that Chris Eubank Jr. was doing a reaction to the first time ever in his life consuming KFC. Now, I thought this was strange because I didn't know they didn't even have KFC in UK. In fact, they do have KFC in the UK. It's just that Eubank Sr. didn't want to partake in it quite simply because he wanted to live a healthy life. He wanted to live a life of a warrior, as Chris Sr. would love to say. But in any regard, that's not what Ryan Garcia lived right under. He didn't live a life of a warrior. What he did was live a life of somebody that was of a degenerate who wasn't even an athlete. Now, look, he got away with it during the Devin Haney fight. I know the Devin Haney fight was a no contest, or it was ruled, whatever it ruled like as if it didn't count. But we saw the fight. We knew what happened. Devin Haney didn't do too good in that fight. And as a result of that, it was the same thing for Devin Haney as well. He didn't really come out here guns blazing the way that he usually does. And I know he's going to get a lot of criticism for that. But I'm going to be honest with you. This whole video is not about Devin Haney at all. I know that Luke Thomas just recently made a video where he blasted both Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia. The only thing that I can blast about them as a collective is the fact that Turkey El-Sheikh actually went out of their way to promote Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney in a Fatal Fury video game, like as if it was going to be a guarantee that both of them were going to win that night. Now, granted, Devin Haney came out the victor, but Ryan Garcia did not. And if you really want to talk collectives, and if that was your intention of putting that fight together, well, unfortunately, mission failed because Ryan Garcia did not hold up his end of the bargain. Now, you could say that Devin Haney did not look too good, but at the same time, it was Ryan Garcia who did not hold up his end of the bargain because people would have been very interested in that matchup. That matchup was on its way to literally captivate old beef that they had going on, all this great banter that they had all together, going back and forth about ashwagandha, about Nestorine, or whatever type of terrain that he's taking, and then it goes into Bill Haney's dad, and then next thing you know, Oscar De La Hoya and Bill Haney's dad wants to get into it. There was a lot of magic that went into that whole entire fight. Now the problem was one guy had to come out here and absolutely, both of the guys had to win, and it was Ryan Garcia who did not show out, unfortunately. And as a result of that, it shows you that fighting is not a Hollywood movie. Even though that was with the intention of Turkey El-Sheikh and the promotion that was put behind Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney, the fact of the matter was what he got out of it was, I'm talking about Turkey El-Sheikh, what he got out of it was new competitive architectures that are going on in the fight game. Because now, what about Raleigh and Haney? Could they go at it? I mean, possibly if there's a storyline with that. But Raleigh wants to go after Boots Ennis. And then Devin Haney wants to go after, who knows who he wants to go after. The sky's the limit for him. But from here on out, Ryan Garcia, in my opinion, is done at the highest level. I think that Ryan Garcia is going to continue to box. He's going to continue to win. But those wins are going to be predicated on names that, quite frankly, are not at the highest level, if not at the championship level, with the likes of Tank, with the likes of even Devin Haney. I think Devin Haney at some point, with a good training camp behind him and a good strategy behind him, could probably beat the version of Ryan Garcia that was there last night. And I know a lot of people did not like the performance of Devin Haney, but rest assured, understand this. He won, and that's what was on the record books. And as for Ryan Garcia, what was on the record books was the fact that he lost. That is all that we really have to say about that. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in it. Kamzat Chimaev. I'm not going to join in on, as somebody who openly supports Kamzat Chimaev, I'm not going to join in on the, how do I say this, slander of Bo Nickel. And this often happens whenever somebody that talks the bravest often falls in the highest depth, and people are going to want to jump on his body and literally kick him while he is down after falling off that cliff. That's the reality of Bo Nickel right now. That's what you are seeing. Now, I hear that a lot of people say, what if he was a much more kinder person in the approach of his trash talking? Well, the reality is you would not know him. He would just be another wrestler. And here's another thing you got to understand, right? Bo Nickel, this is not the first time that he lost. You see, this guy was supposed to go to the Olympics. Why didn't he? Well, he didn't make it. One of his buddies did, but he didn't. As a result of that, Bo Nickel knows a thing or two about losses. Even though he is an NCAA champion, by the end of the day, he's also still had losses in his illustrious 300 some odd career in terms of wrestling, because obviously you do get thousands of matches all throughout your life if you have wrestled from middle school, high school, college, and maybe even into the Olympics. But he never went that far. So what did he do? He went and concentrated on mixed martial arts. And oftentimes we have this idea where we think, you know what, a wrestler is somebody that we should promote, right? Because obviously wrestling is the most effective part of mixed martial arts, or is it? And we're going to get to that in a second, because there's an important topic on that particular subject that really needs to get some honing down on when it comes to mixed martial arts and its modern practice, or the rightful practice, or the correct practice, if that even means anything in the world of mixed martial arts, where nothing really matters when it comes to what is correct. And that is why it was very strange for Bo Nickel to say something like, a sport where a lot of people think they know very little, but they seem to talk like they know a lot, right? And he said something to that effect. Well, Bo, to be honest with you, D. Ritter knew a lot about MMA. Somebody that had 25 fights, some odd, in his whole entire career, amateur or pro, maybe even more, and he knows how to put punches, kicks, knees, and takedowns together. All Bo Nickel had was a takedown, and that was even effective during the Paul Craig fight, or this fight, for that matter. He did manage to take him down. Don't get it twisted. But after that takedown, what did he do with it? Not very much, very little to what he did in that particular part of the fight. And unfortunately, we have to look at that and say to ourselves, is Bo Nickel digressing in his wrestling? Or is he getting better as a mixed martial artist in terms of his striking? And we've seen no evidence of that as of yet. Or the other side of it is perhaps maybe he's going to rise above this, because remember what happened to George St. Pierre, one of the greatest of all time. They questioned the fact of whether this guy had any cojones on him, on top of the fact that he tapped to strikes against Matt Serra. So it was very suspicious for a lot of people to look at George St. Pierre from 2007 and the 2008 year mark of the UFC and say, this guy's going to be a legend one day. We just thought that maybe he was going to be a one-hit wonder, but lo and behold, he avenges Matt Serra and then goes on a run all throughout his retirement, and then comes back and gets the 85 strap. So we don't know what holds of Bo Nickel, but why is there so much negative talk about Bo Nickel? It is simple, because the ones that dare to be great are always going to be criticized. Was Bo Nickel being a little bit cocky when he said that American wrestling is way superior than that of the Dagestanis? He wasn't lying. He wasn't trash talking or any kind of way. Now, there are elements of Bo's mic game where he was trash talking, and that really is just predicated on the fact that he wants to build up the fight with Khamzat Chimaev. And in reality, is that really a bad thing? Is it really that bad that he wants to go out there and try to promote himself in terms of a potential fight that honestly would do Ivan Drago and Rocky numbers. Okay, because that's literally what the fight symbolizes in that particular instance. You are literally looking at an Ivan Drago Rocky situation, an all-American wrestler versus, well, you could say an all-Swedish wrestler, but really you want to market him as a Russian because that's where he's from, and that is what is going to sell tickets due to the bad guy and good guy element. But now, speaking of good guy and bad guy element, they are now trashing the living heck out of Bo Nickel. Is it warranted? Is it something that we really need to pile upon him? We don't know, but the reality is this. Bo Nickel is using a very outdated style. Okay? Everything else is warranted. The trash talking, I'm with it. You want to know why? It sells fights, sells tickets. That's what we're in the business for. The fact that he downgrades Dagestani wrestling or the wrestling of Khabib, it's not really that wrong because these guys did not go and compete at an Olympic level. However, they have a lot of Olympic wrestlers around them that make them elite in that particular department of wrestling because they train with them. And that is no different in what Bo Nickel does. You see, he didn't make it to the Olympics as a wrestler, and then he tried his hand in MMA, and this is where he's at right now. Okay? He didn't make it to the Olympics, but he trains with those guys. And training with those guys is going to give you a residue of that grind and that greatness and the technicalities that you're going to absorb from those camps. And that is no different than Khabib. That is no different than Bo Nickel. And that is no different than Khamzat. And this is why this fight would have been really great. And for those of you that down Bo Nickel, a part of me can't blame you. I really can't blame you that you want to smother and smash on Bo Nickel because you felt like, you know what, oh, this guy is so cocky, he's so arrogant. But guess what? Conor McGregor did all of that too. The only difference is that he won. Well, how did this turn out for Conor McGregor? You look at his current life trajectory right now. I mean, it's great, right? He's running for prime minister. We don't know if there's some reality to that, but the experts on that field say otherwise. Conor McGregor claims that he wants to come back and make another run. A lot of the experts in MMA are saying otherwise. What else are other people that are saying, quote unquote, otherwise? Well, how about the fact that Bo Nickel is championship level material where he can finish Dricus du Plessis and Robert Whittaker and Khamzat Chimaev in the same similar fashion? But the reality is that the evidence of that right now, as it speaks, doesn't seem that way. But in the future, can it become like that? Sure. Have you guys not watched the history of mixed martial arts? You take a look at the past champions. Doesn't have to be George St. Pierre because he had a Lennox Lewis type of career, meaning that all his 2 losses that he has, he avenged. But ultimately, meaning that he beat everybody that was in front of him. So that is a perfect career. Now, what about Islam Makhachev? He got that loss against Martins, right? I saw a meme, something about with Islam making his sujood prayer to the mat, right? While Martins won that fight by a knockout, right? The meme said something like the biggest fluke in MMA history. Well, it's not. It's not a fluke. But would it be a fluke if Islam was to beat him today? Of course, it wouldn't be a fluke, right? That's what we know is to happen. But on that day, and whatever happened on that day between Martins and Islam, Martins got the best of Islam. But Islam still goes on to become the greatest ever. Now, why am I saying that? Because Bo Nickel still has a chance. And you got to remember this. If you're still dreaming for a fight between him and Khamzat, that's not too far away. Remember, they're on the verge of possibly making Tyson Fury or Anthony Joshua. Both of these guys coming off of devastating losses, still an interesting fight. Even if Khamzat was to come off of a loss, or even if Khamzat was to remain an undisputed champion defending the belt multiple times, All Bo Nickel has to do is string up a few wins to make it look convincing and then make this still a big fight for what it is. Or even if it was a situation where Khamzat maybe coming off of a loss and these two guys want to build each other up, those two names are still valuable with each other on a fight poster. But nonetheless, that is all that we have for Bo Nickel and for Khamzat Chimaev. Now, before I go, let's compare a couple of things. Right now, Bo Nickel is a pure wrestler trying to get his hands on striking. He can fight in a striking matter individualistically to that particular style, but putting it all together, I think, is where he's problematic at in the current moment of his stage of his career. Putting it all together, having to switch stances from switching levels all the way to a fighting stance where you have to be in a Muay Thai stance for whatever it is that you want to do, from a body kick all the way down to switching back and stuffing takedowns and being technically defensive when the time permits, right? So these things he has to particularly work on. With Khamzat, he strings these things together. Khamzat has a certain explosivity about him, not only in his techniques, but also in his physical attributes. But within those same physical attributes, he's able to mix it up just a whole lot better than Bo Nickel, and that really proved in the D. Ritter fight. A guy who is a very experienced mixed martial artist, two-weight world champion in ONE FC. Now, that may not be in the UFC, I get it, but you got to understand there is still tough levels in ONE FC, and not to mention guys on steroids and guys that are a little bit more hydrated up. So you would imagine the level of fighting that they may experience in that side of the fence, but you never know. The UFC is still number one nonetheless, no matter where you fight at around the world. But tonight, the UFC industry plant was beaten by the hardcore fans' delight, because guess what? If you're going to stay up 1 a.m. in the morning to watch a ONE FC fight where D. Ritter used to fight at, you would be a hardcore. And guess what? I think the hardcores saw exactly what I saw going into that fight. Don't forget to like and subscribe. So I think we've talked about a lot of kicks and punches that have gone on with the fight. I've done the live reaction. You guys can go check it out. I've done the post-fight analysis on video. Go check that out. I've also done another live stream on that. Check out all the content that I have available for that particular matter. So, okay, so let's pause that for a second and talk about another subject beyond UFC 314, because it's always about what is next, right? Well, we know that it's Bilal Muhammad and JDM next in Montreal in May for the 170 title as the headliner. What we also forget to understand is that nobody is bigger than the program. What is the program? The program is the UFC. And with that said, the UFC is in a position where they can put anybody on a card and it will sell. Now, look, this particular gate did 17 million, I believe, or no, that's not correct. 11 million. 17 million was Conor McGregor in UFC 205 against Eddie Alvarez, which was a very big event. So with that said, what we have is a situation where they are not only a monopoly, they are the only game in town, but they can literally put on a card with just about anybody and it will sell. And this is not to diminish Volk in any kind of way, but let's just be honest. Volk is a champion that has already been beaten. He's now a champion, but he was beaten by a champion who still is active and decided to vacate the belt to pursue a higher weight class when he could have just gotten a double championship like Conor McGregor. That is what you have going on with this situation right now. Nobody is bigger than the program. Do you think that Ilia Topuria is an asset to the UFC? Of course he is. But here's the reality of Ilia Topuria. He can be replaced. Conor McGregor is a rare gem and a once-in-a-lifetime character, and that's what we got out of the situation.
Obviously, he like a new boot get cut things, so check it out. But other than that, happy. Also, all in Australia, I did a couple of interviews. I didn't see you check it. I should be a lot more check. I have after a couple of shows. Absolutely massive. The two-time champion. That one was lost to the regular and get the title back is incredible. Why does it want to happen? I guess I was a bit hard on myself. I'm straight and strong. What's about that?
Yeah, so once again, great job on Volkanovski. He said that he's his harshest critic, which is great to hear. It's what you want to hear for a fighter that's ever evolving. And of course, let's not forget, he is a consummate technician. And what that means is that he's going to continue to win fights in that particular matter. It's just that he had very bad circumstances, and what he did was incredible in terms of a comeback. But let's not forget, there is a champion right now that vacated that belt only to pursue another champion, which he could have gotten a double championship, like what I mentioned with Conor McGregor. But on any event, understand this: the UFC is the biggest program out there, and nobody is bigger than the program, and they have a monopoly in the game, whether anybody likes it or not, and nobody can compete with them. Look at PFL, look at the scheduling nightmare that they have going on. Look at all these things that they have to try and make edible for the fans, sports fans, with all these seasons. It doesn't work. ONE FC is popping. All right, they're doing something different, but they're not the UFC. They are also a Muay Thai organization, also a grappling organization. I'm surprised they don't even do boxing, but on any event, the UFC is the only game in town, and nobody can stop them. Nobody is bigger than the program, and that's what we learned post-UFC 314. And if you want to see the rest of this, check it out in Volk's channel, recap UFC 314. I'll see ya.
Neutral. Starting off the list of good. Actually, he's going to go into neutral too, because this guy's he's wild as shit sometimes, but he's I'm telling you, El-Kheer, he's wild as shit. He's going into neutral for different reasons. He's fucking wild. But he's the type of guy that you would want on your side. I feel like this guy just has an immense fucking loyalty about him. He's a good fucking dude. He is loyalty over royalty, defined to the fucking max. Now we start off the good cat. Yeah, I like El-Kheer. Fucking so what?
And give them whatever. From what it looks like, John Jones is willing to vacate his belt to avoid Tom Aspinall. Now, is he scared of Tom Aspinall? It's very redundant to talk about this at this point, because there's people that are going to defend John Jones and say, well, it's contract negotiations, it's this and that. Let's debunk that right now. If it was a contract negotiation, the Saudis could easily step right in there and say, hey, you know what? We're going to host International Fight Week, and you're going to do it under Riyadh season because it's great promotion for Riyadh season. And ultimately, this is a reason why the Saudis are in the fight business to begin with, is to be able to sell their brand, sell their country, and market their tourism. And they can do that easily with a Tom Aspinall and a John Jones fight, and give them whatever compensation that they need. So at this point, it's not about the money. I think there are players involved that are willing to pay the bills that need to be paid in order to get this fight started. Well, John Jones, it's not about the money for him. Right now, it is about legacy. You want proof of that? He literally said, I'm going to vacate the belt, and whoever the champion is when I come back, I'm going to fight them. So in other words, he's leaving a lot of ambiguous language in order to make proper choices later on that can either be detrimental or helpful to his career. What do I mean by that? Well, he's taking the GSP approach. You see, GSP dropped his belt after fighting Johnny Hendricks. After that fight, 3 years later, he comes back and fights Michael Bisping at a weight class 1 up higher. Now, why did he decide to do that? He saw that there were openings that he could take and exploit, just like John Jones did with the Cyril Gane fight, and just like what he's going to do when he sees Tom Aspinall dominate everybody or gets one slip up, and then he's going to use that domination or that slip up as his decision making onto what he's going to do in the future. So in other words, if Tom Aspinall becomes way too dangerous later on after vacating the belt, then he's just not going to bother with it. He's going to ride off into the sunset, and people will even forget that at one point we were thinking about having a Tom Aspinall matchup with him. Or he can come back where, let's say Tom Aspinall gets a Buster Douglas situation, gets knocked down or knocked out or submitted by somebody that ultimately doesn't deserve to be there, a sort of like a lucky fluke, right? There's a lot of that in the sport. Sean Strickland, you could say that about Leon Edwards, you could say that about Matt Serra. These are all the lucky strokes for people that should have never been champion, at least in the opinion of many hardcore fans and MMA historians. That's what you got with John Jones. He's trying to create an ambiguous future, an ambiguous legacy that you cannot really judge or criticize too harshly, because at this point of his career, he's already managed to dominate everybody that was in his path and create a legacy that is unmatched, not even by Tom Aspinall, at least not in the current state of mind right now, in the current state of their accolades. That's what John is trying to do. There's a strategic reasoning behind it. Look, if you really wanted this fight, you got to understand the UFC's calendar is already getting filled up. Nobody knows what International Fight Week is. There's Islam Makhachev with the talk of moving up to 170. That's the other conversation that we're going to have about this particular topic at hand. But on any regards, that's all that we really have for this one, okay? All that we have for this one is that John Jones is willing to vacate the belt, and as a result of that, it is on to the next one. It is on to the next challengers, and it is on to the next heavyweight divisions, new talent that is coming up. There's Shamil Gaziev. There's Kennedy and J Troop that's in the mix. There's Waldo Costa. Who else is in the mix? Obviously, Cyril Gane will always be in the mix. There's fresh matchups for him. But you never know. But by the end of the day, that is all that I have for this one. John Jones is willing to vacate the belt. Now, I'm willing to guarantee that the UFC is not going to do anything about Bryce Mitchell's comments. And you know exactly what Bryce Mitchell's comments are. In fact, I'm probably going to be a little bit reluctant in titling Bryce Mitchell endorses such and such German guy in the 1940s, and you know exactly who I'm talking about. So before we continue on, I'd like you guys to like and subscribe as I talk about the controversies of Bryce Mitchell, and also why the UFC will do absolutely nothing about it. For one, the UFC is not like the NBA, and as a result of that, what you're going to get is a company that really stands by, we're going to allow our fighters to say what they want to say as long as what? They don't mention something racist? Okay, true. But let's analyze this, right? And I want you to understand this is not in any way to endorse or go against Bryce Mitchell in any kind of way. What I need you to understand is that Bryce Mitchell is only saying words. What are those words? You know exactly what he said. The quote is out there in the internet right now. And everything that he's saying in there about this 1940s German guy. He's making him look like a hero. He's making him look like a defender of a nation. But here's another thing you got to understand that many people don't take into consideration. There's a term that goes, one man's freedom fighter is another man's terrorist. This is the case that we got going on right now. And that's going to be hard for a lot of people to swallow. Man, do I like it? No, absolutely not. I hate it. Man, do I like it? Who cares what I think? That's not what I'm trying to convey in this video. What I'm trying to convey in this video is the objective outlooks that we have to understand surrounding this story. For example, the normalization of this particular language in Twitter. And some can argue that it is propelled by Elon Musk, and it doesn't help that Elon Musk went and did the salute that he did to create such suggestive languages that do nothing but really create more stirred emotions from, let's be honest, a lot of people who are either just too invested or people that have low emotional intelligence. So now, is it right that Bryce Mitchell said what he said? You got to be honest, right? A lot of people have a different type of conversation behind closed doors. I've seen this growing up in New Jersey. You see, for example, I knew a lot of Italian Americans that I grew up with in Jersey, and that would be, go figure, right? You live in New Jersey, that's the type of people you're going to be around. So, honestly, a lot of them, not all of them, but a good portion of the ones that I've experienced in my own anecdotal, personal point of view, a lot of them will say racist remarks behind closed doors. And guess what? It's not exclusive to the Italians either, right? It goes with everybody, every group, Hispanics, whites, blacks, Haitians, Europeans, Arab. I'm going on a little Nas tangent right there with the lyrics, but on any regard, look, what you got to understand is we live in a culture right now where there are people that sort of accept this type of language. Now, the question is, how are you going to respond to it? Are you going to respond to it as an antagonist, or are you going to respond to it as a protagonist, and as a result, put yourself in the line of fire when you draw the line in the sand? Or do you just look at all of this as an observer, as either to analyze it from an objective point of view, or criticize it to the highest degree? Now, let's talk about the UFC. What are they going to do about it? The reality is absolutely nothing. Because the UFC stands by freedom of speech. Did he say anything racist? Well, let's be honest, right? If he mentioned anything about anyone's race, then yes. But what he was doing, Bryce Mitchell, was comparing a person that needed to take action in whatever it is that he needed to do for his country, at least in the message that is being conveyed by Bryce Mitchell. Now, is he right? Listen, that's not for me to decide. And whether I agree with it or not is irrelevant. Whether you agree with it or not is irrelevant. But it is interesting to understand where all of this sort of falls into the modern culture that we are living at today. You see, I think there's a bigger play at hand to try and understand here, right? The UFC is the modern Attitude Era from the WWE. Do you remember that era? Because that was an era where they had attracted a demographics of college-aged males all the way to the age of 45, where these men at this particular age group have enough testosterone to really get disrespectful, go out of line, and do things that are just beyond outrageous to the highest order in order for shock value, which was, again, the culture of the late 90s during the Attitude Era. You had Tupac, Death Row, D-Generation X, NWO in professional wrestling. You had dudes gang jumping everybody into NWO and in WCW, and then you had everybody in the WWE doing all these outrageous acts, including racial monotones when you had the likes of the Nation of Domination and D-Generation X sort of poking fun, wearing black paint faces to mock their opposition, who happens to be an all-black squad in the Nation of Domination. And for those that understand professional wrestling, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So, will Dana White do anything about this? No. And let's analyze that. What is Dana White going to say about this particular matter? He's going to say, you know what? That's not up for me to decide. That's literally what he's going to say. It's not up for me to decide, and that's only for the bottom dollar of the UFC if it tanks. And you know what? It's not going to tank. You want to know why? This is the same culture as I'm talking about with the Attitude Era right now. This is the same culture that elected Donald Trump in office. And you got to understand and analyze the overall supporter base of Donald Trump. Not all. Because look, not all of the Donald Trump supporters are like Snoop Dogg or Jorge Masvidal or you name it. Maybe even Colby Covington. There's an extreme end, an extreme spectrum of his followers. So you got to understand that, okay? There's an extreme side of his followers, which means this is what they're willing to tolerate. They don't have a problem with it. And if you have a problem with it, here's something that you are not understanding right now. You are not understanding that you're living in a different era, in a completely different political landscape. You see, the woke movement was ruling the entire narrative in the media for a little bit. And then after a while, people got sick and tired of it because it just became redundant, in your face. And as a result, there was a pushback. And what was that pushback? The current political landscape that you are seeing right now. So as a result of that political change in landscape, what you have now is a completely different outlook of culture from, I would say, the majority of Americans. And that is the reason why I honestly don't think that Bryce Mitchell is going to get in trouble, is going to be reprimanded. Will he be condemned? Of course. Will his stock go down or go up? That remains to be seen. But for now, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one, inshallah. Perhaps maybe justice will be served on that note. But here's the crazy thing about this. What if that perpetrator who violated the kid of Cain Velasquez ends up going free because of insufficient evidence? All right, and with that, do not forget to like and subscribe, and also watch until the end for some shocking details. before we talk about one of the greatest heavyweights to have ever set foot in the octagon, let's talk about a video that I want to redirect you guys to later on, right after this one. It is my Tom Aspinall and John Jones video where I talk about how this fight is coming a lot closer than what we would have expected. For a long time, I would have thought that maybe John Jones was going to duck, being that Tom Aspinall is such a dangerous fighter, a very dangerous stylistic matchup, but it seems that this is coming to fruition. So stay tuned for that one. And also, let's get back to the Cain Velasquez video right now. Believe it or not, some of the most dangerous people on earth that I'm afraid of personally are the ones that don't necessarily have mixed martial arts skills or any type of fighting skills at all. In fact, this is the reason why Cain Velasquez did exactly what he did, because he wanted to extract revenge in the worst way possible. And quite frankly, can you blame him? But the other nuances of this particular incident is the fact that Cain Velasquez did endanger innocent people around him. Now, I know that's not a very popular take to have, but we have to give the news as according to how the law is going to see fit in terms of their sentencing, in terms of why Cain is facing exactly what he's facing right now. Now, look, what a lot of people don't understand about this whole entire incident is that Cain Velasquez really tried to go with the, how do I say this? The procedures of the law. And how I know this is because the man who was accused of this particular matter was taken into custody only to be released later on. Now, you got to ask yourself, what does that send as a message to society? That you can commit a heinous crime like this, right? And I don't even want to mention it, obviously, for monetization purposes, right? But we know what happened. We know what happened to Cain Velasquez's kids, and we now know what is the result of it. Well, the problem with this particular incident is that, yes, he did hit innocent people along the process. Look, the person that he was targeting during a car chase was somebody that was a relative of the perpetrator. Now, does that make it right? No. But can we understand where Cain Velasquez is coming from? 100%. Yeah, we can absolutely understand where Cain Velasquez is coming from with this particular incident. But we have to talk about the nuances of this situation. Many people are just going to look for virtue signaling points and say, well, how can you say anything less other than free Cain? I understand that. But as a content creator, as somebody who is in the forefront of MMA news and things of that nature, you have to give an objective take. But don't get it twisted, because I would have done the same thing that Cain Velasquez would have done. Although I will say, why is it that a man who is so highly dangerous with his hands, a guy who beat up Brock Lesnar, okay, let's put that in context, okay? Let me tell you something. Brock Lesnar was one of my heroes growing up. And when he fought Cain Velasquez, man, let me tell you, I was very excited for that fight because Cain Velasquez is a Northern California guy. Brock Lesnar was a guy that that I looked up to for a long time. Even in the days of my middle school wrestling, all the way throughout high school, I've known about Brock Lesnar. And by the way, shout outs to the NCAA wrestling tournament that just passed right now. Probably one of the best NCAA tournaments of all time. Cain Velasquez was also a part of that entire tournament. Obviously not as big as the way that it is now with the likes of Gable Stevenson being all up in the mix. But that's neither here or there. When he beat Brock Lesnar, I was like, wow, you know what? This is the start of Cain Velasquez's superstardom. Afterwards, he went on to George Lopez's show, talking about his win, talking about his victory, but also taking a dig at Cain Velasquez. Cain Velasquez taking a dig at Brock Lesnar for some of the racial undertones that he was sort of displaying all throughout the fight, saying that he was going to eat a burrito and have a Corona right after the fight or this and that, only for Cain Velasquez, wittingly enough, going into George Lopez's show eating peanut butter sandwich with milk, which I don't know what is that supposed to symbolize. I mean, is that supposed to somehow make fun of the gringos in some kind of way? But either way, Cain Velasquez became a superstar from then on, and then afterwards, like most athletes, like most wrestlers, okay, the injuries started piling up. Obviously, we've seen the end of his career during the Francis Ngannou fight, and then he just went downhill from there. He went on and retired with no shame to his game whatsoever, right? But then, obviously, his kid, he had to go send him to daycare, this and that. He was being violated, and well, you know what? Like most fathers would, he did exactly what any of us would have done, but unfortunately, he got caught, and the judge. By the way, it switched. Okay, this is what I know so far. The judges switched up. Okay, so in other words, the original judge was supposed to give him a much heftier sentence. Okay, they were going to throw the book at him. They were going to bury him. But now he served about 1,000 days, some odd, in prison. They're going to account that. So now they're sentencing him to 5 years, accounted from all the other prison time that he's already done. And, well, we're talking about maybe 1 year and a half. So maybe somewhere in the middle of 2026 or just right at the end of 2026, he may be released. And that's about it. But I will say, prison-wise, what's going to happen now with Cain Velasquez being in prison? Okay, so he's going to be in a protective custody based on the fact that he is a high-profile figure. Now, Cain Velasquez is not a gang member. He's not a person that owes any particular street or prison organization their time or their service or anything of that nature, right? He is a civilian. He is a high-profile athlete. Even rappers who have gang affiliations that go into prison, what happens to them? They don't really go into main lines most of the time. I mean, they can request it, but oftentimes get denied based on their high-profile portfolio. So they have to put them in protective custody, and Cain is not going to be any different. However, I will say that he is going to have the support of many people there. Obviously, if you guys know anything about California prisons, there's a racial element that comes into that. The blacks hang out with the blacks, the whites hang out with the whites, and the Mexicans hang out with the Mexicans. And then there's the other, for whatever that means in your own interpretation and to anybody's interpretation of that part of the world. But either way, he's going to be respected in there, not only with all of the gangs and all of the prison politics that are involved in it, but also with the CEOs as well. Not CEOs, COs, sorry. But yeah, he's not going to have any problems in there because let me tell you something. If there's one thing that's going to collaborate police and criminals together, it is going after child molesters, right? That's just really what it is. Now, Cain is no different than that. He's obviously a hero in the sports world, in the MMA world, and they're going to treat him as such. But at the same time, they're also going to treat him as a person that has these special circumstances based on the situation that followed him. Look, so I'm very sad by this whole thing, but honestly, this was the best case scenario for Cain Velasquez. Why is that? Because obviously they were planning on throwing 20 years on him. Now, what had happened if, let's say, he went and fired these shots and killed somebody in the process? Well, unfortunately, what would have happened was that he would have gotten 30 years to life, okay? And that would have been the worst case scenario. And by the way, the previous judge was planning on doing exactly that. Not exactly the best choice, not exactly the more favorable choice by the majority of the population that is obviously behind Cain Velasquez right now. But shout out to Khabib, shout out to A.K.A., shout out to everybody that helped along the way to give Cain Velasquez the best case possible, and even the judge. Now, you're probably wondering, well, why should we thank the judge? Because he's obviously getting some prison time, and the best case scenario would have not been given any prison time at all. Well, they still have to do their job. They still have to act in accordance to their social contract, just like any gang member, just like any law enforcement, just like any military personnel. They have to act within a social contract of what is in front of them and the rules that they live by. And obviously, if you are endangering society in any kind of way, this is the course of action that they have to take. It is unfortunate. I don't agree with it because obviously I have a different idea of what social contract should be followed, but that's not the world that we live in. But all I can say is I hope that because Donald Trump is the president right now and he is the UFC president, right? Basically a president who loves the UFC and loves its athletes and things of that nature. I hope he can intervene and create some kind of a pardon to free Cain Velasquez, because that right there is also the best case scenario. I don't think personally Cain Velasquez should have done any prison time whatsoever, but this is the reality of the justice system that we have in the West. And unfortunately, we really turn a blind eye to pedos and nunces, as they say in the UK, right? We really turn a blind eye to these situations. I don't think that we should, and I think that we really should pay attention to these particular things and also take action. Now, take a look at the Kendrick Lamar and the Drake situation, right? Kendrick Lamar just does a diss track insinuating certain type of behavior of Drake, and we just sweep it under the rug. It's on to the next week. Okay, he says it in a Super Bowl in front of everybody in the world. Nothing is being done about it. No investigations, no follow-up or anything like that. We just move on to the next thing. And that is the unfortunate thing. Now, the fortunate thing for this situation is that the accuser of this heinous crime, the one that violated Cain Velasquez's kid, has a trial coming up. So perhaps maybe justice will be served on that note. But here's the crazy thing about this. What if that perpetrator who violated the kid of Cain Velasquez ends up going free because of insufficient evidence? Now, that's the scariest part of all, but not the best case scenario. However, for Cain Velasquez, this was the best case scenario, and that is all that I have for this one. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. MMA needs, if you want to find predictions, news, and everything that deals with MMA, shout outs to Kyrie of El-Kheer MMA, Sacramento, California, represent.
That's right, Kyrie. I appreciate you, my nigga. You came in here, you was talking that shit. That's right, bro. Much love, Flo. I appreciate you for always stepping in, bro. Be safe out there. Man. My man Kyrie came through. He started talking that shit. Hey, here's the thing. Here's the thing. That nigga will whoop your fucking ass. You would think that nigga's all squared up and all that type of shit. Nigga come here and beat your fucking ass. Like, man. Fuck you up. You would never see it coming. So for those of y'all